clock says 5 p.m., which means it's time for us to get started. I want to formally welcome our audience from all these amazing countries. Thank you, people, from checking in from different parts of the world. I know it's different time zones for you as well. We have an amazing panel for you, I would say, like always. And before I forget, I think I should introduce myself. Sometimes I take it for granted that you guys kind of know me because I'm hosting all the time. But for all the newbies in the room, my name is Sharad Agarwal. I'm based in Dubai, and I run a digital agency called Cyber Gear. And I've been doing it for 28 long years. And just 2 years back, we pivoted to Web3. And since then, we have hosted a lot of webinars for this space. We've covered all topics relating to Metaverse, Web3, NFTs, DAOs, tokenization, community, you name it. Lots of webinars, lots of audiences, lots of panelists. I also want you to know that our panelists are from Los Angeles to Sydney, covering all continents. More than 40 speakers presenting over 2 days, today and tomorrow. And I looked at the registrations of our audience, and from last count, it was 72 countries are being represented in the audience. So thank you, all of you, for taking time to join us. And I just want to talk 2 minutes very quickly about why we do this, why we host these webinars. And we do it for free. We don't charge a nickel from the audience. We don't even pay our speakers, but I guess it's just the commitment of people to give back and to share information, because I do believe that one of the very strong pillars of Web3 is education. And that's the reason we do this. At a recent podcast, in fact, just last week, the interviewer asked me, he says, who are these meta shapers? I open my social media, especially LinkedIn, and all I see are meta shapers. So I thought for a while, and then he said, can you define meta shapers in one word? And I said, that's really hard to do. But after giving it a thought, I said, meta shapers is an idea. Meta shapers is an idea. And then he said, you need to elaborate. I don't get it. And this is how I explain. If you think in terms of a year, you should plant a seed. If you think for, let's say, 10 years, you should plant trees. If you want to think for 100 years, plant people, educate people. And if you want to think forever, plant an idea. And that's my definition of meta shapers. Meta shapers is an idea which will live long after we are gone. There will be new torch bearers who will come from the community and who will drive this initiative. So I have a lot of faith in the group and the community that we have created, all like-minded individuals. And the last thing I want to say is, over the next 2 days, you are going to hear a lot, and I mean a lot, about tech, about artificial intelligence, about generative AI, how it's going to be changing our lives. You will hear a lot about Metaverse, NFTs, Web3, how this is a game changer as well, and how when the two of them combine, they create magic. So AI is not a threat to Metaverse or any other technology. It's in fact going to give it a boost, and we will see mass adoption sooner than expected. And finally, after all the tech talk is said and done, in my opinion, there are just two things that matter in life, and these are my life's learnings. First one is happiness, and second is peace of mind. Everything else is a distraction. So I want to leave you with those words. Think about it. If you agree, give me a thumbs up or a yes in the chat. And I'm going to hand it over to my capable colleagues who you see in the room. Susan Furness, who's been with me right from the first webinar that we hosted. John Scott, we did, I think, 9-10 webinars on what's next on the trot. Thank you, John Scott, for being here. And Andrea, who's ably supported us in all our webinars that we've done as a community. So thank you for your support as well. My time is up. I'll, of course, be coming back later in a conversation with Nova Lorraine, but I'll hand it over to my good friend Susan to take this forward. Over to you, Susan.
Thank you, Sharad, and thank you all. And blow me down, because today I'm broadcasting, if you like, from Ras Al Khaimah, from the Ras Al Khaimah Economic Free Zone in the Compass Co-working Centre, which is again a community. And of course, we are all a community here. And it's one of those days where it's very, very high energy. Usually there's nobody here at this time. So excuse any ramblings in the background, but suffice it to say, it's community working and hard at work. So I just wanted to acknowledge you again, Sharad, and indeed acknowledge you all as Metashapers, and just to give a quick sort of background on where this all started. Now, for Sharad, this all started on the bridge from Web 1 to Web 2, back in the sort of mid-90s here in the United Arab Emirates. And that's when Sharad and I met. And then, we kept really close together throughout that time. And in fact, Sharad was, if you like, touting websites when people had said, why do I need a website? But it was 2017 that I had a coffee with Sharad. And Sharad, you first talked to me about artificial intelligence. That was 2017. So fast forward to, that sort of curious Corona time in the middle of 2020. And we both started the conversation around Web3 and the Metaverse and tokenization. And it wasn't long. It was only a few months later, in fact, January the 25th on 2021, that we hosted our first Metashapers webinar. And the title of that webinar was, Is Your Brand Future Sensing the Metaverse? Is your brand future sensing the Metaverse? And we all know that here on the early stage of 2024, that's still a very, very live question, isn't it? And indeed, there are many Metashapers on the class today, the 40 plus cast members, well, there are 5 of you that were present at that very, very first webinar, including, for example, Jimmy Dowdu and Jamie Brett. In the meantime, Jamie's got himself married and got himself another name as well. So Jamie Bycoff Brett. Jamie will be on later. He will end today for us, and he's also taking part in the panel. And also, as Sharad said, someone that's been very early doors with us is you, John Scott Turco. So as I've just sort of given a quick introduction, or let's, if you like, a storyline, a very quick storyline of how we traverse from Web 1 to Web 2, and then now on this bridge to Web 3. I feel that I want to hand it over to you and cut it here, John Scott, just to give us a little introduction into where you see from the agenda that the Web3 conversation is going to go today. Over to you, Scott.
Thank you, Susan, and welcome to everyone. And as Sharad said, this has been quite a journey over the last several years. And I'm happy, and will not take a lot of time because we're already behind. My mission today is as well as all of ours, is to keep us on a pretty good schedule. We're seeing in the topics today, from the first presentation on metaverse diplomacy, looking at sustainability and positivity, the arts, legal aspects, democratizing VR, AR, so many different topics that are all perhaps initially outside what you imagine when you hear metaverse and Web3. These are all converging in terms of our real life every day. So they're not just a technical solution. It's not just something for people who are obsessed with technical aspects, although many of us are on this call, in this webinar. This is going to be a very full scope of perspectives, educated opinions, and also very dynamic presentations that are going to enrich you in ways that may be outside the initial perception of what the Web3 and Metaverse and all associated technologies are going to be. So I invite you to sit down, pay attention, and to kick off our first session. Today, I'll give it back to Susan.
You're on mute, Susan.
Susan, you're on mute. Susan, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
I'm very sorry, everybody. It just didn't click over when I pressed the bar. So yes, I can see you there, Ingrid. Thank you very, very much. I'll be with you in 2 ticks. Just before I do that, I'm sure Sharad and Andrea can see that we've got a couple of lovely meta shapers in this room now and not have come in on their panelist link. May I leave that to you? And there's Elisabetta, Saha, Jimmy, and Ali. I'll leave that to you all. Whilst I go over to you, Ingrid, thank you so much, very much indeed, actually, for being with us here today and for being, let's say, the courageous one to open the door to this 7-8 hours of conversation. And we really appreciate that. It's Professor Dr. Ingrid Vassiliou-Feltis. I mean, amazing. I'm sure we've all had a good look and seen what a wonderful voice you are. And some of the areas that I get really enamored on every time I go in to have a look at your LinkedIn conversations in Ingrid is descriptions like that you're an aficionado, but this time the digital twins instead of something like fine wines. I just love that, and it's also wonderful indeed that you focus so much on building a sustainable future, and getting your voice out there on behalf of everyone in the world, in the G20, in the United Nations, and indeed getting picked up in great publications like Forbes, etc. And I saw a huge list of awards, Ingrid. I mean, all deserving, I absolutely know. And there were some words attached to those awards, words like influencer, like iconic, like visionary. But the word that really grabbed me, Ingrid, and this does come as a sincere appreciation, is the word teacher. And indeed, for 2 years running, you've won Teacher of the Year. And I take that as, just something that very much touches my heart. And I know many people's heart, that we can have just a few minutes of you to hear what you've got to teach us and enable us and encourage us on this journey. So Ingrid, may I put it over to you and ask you to share screen and start with any other introduction that you want to give us about you as you talk about building a sustainable and equitable future in metaverse diplomacy. Over to you, Ingrid.
Thank you so much, Susan, for the kind introduction. And once again, thank you for inviting me. I couldn't think of a better community to share the introductory keynote about metaverse diplomacy. We have all the diplomats for the metaverse with us here today. I think this community can be a powerful force. So please allow me to share my screen, and I'll try to highlight why I felt it would be really important for us, the meta shapers, to be participating in this movement to advance metaverse diplomacy, and specifically to advance it so that we can build a sustainable and equitable future in the metaverse. The inspiration for this topic comes from lessons learned that we all experienced with blockchain, AI, now quantum. And I would hope that if we're all a powerful force to increase advocacy for the metaverse, so that there is accurate understanding of what the metaverse actually is, reduce miscommunications, reduce false impressions about what the metaverse is, I think we can do some beautiful things together to achieve the sustainable and equitable future that we're all aspiring to. So that's the inspiration for the talk today. And please allow me to share a brief overview for the few minutes that we'll spend together. I will just touch on a few elements that we're seeing in the global socio-economic landscape that I think are strong drivers that also indicate to us why we must advance metaverse diplomacy now. Now is the moment in time. Also, some of the latest mega trends that I think are converging and will help us to advance metaverse diplomacy. I can't, of course, not mention the challenges we have to overcome if we want to be successful, but I will also conclude with a few opportunities that I think we have to accelerate metaverse diplomacy. And then my favorite part will be to share a few thoughts on future directions and what we can all contribute to achieve our goals. Before we start about talking about diplomacy, I just wanted to make sure we use the same definitions. And as we know, there is no universal definition of metaverse diplomacy yet. So I just selected a few that at least I personally found relevant. They're all good. I wish we could have one cohesive one. And I thought maybe a little call to action for this group is to develop a metaverse diplomacy manifesto and develop our own definition. That would be wonderful. So the Diplo Foundation has introduced the terminology of metaverse diplomacy 2 years ago and wrote a beautiful article about it. And the way they envision it is that metaverse diplomacy is negotiation and representation in virtual reality technologies, which I think is important. And as we heard in the introduction earlier, technology is the core, the foundation, but there are many other things that are related to that. Accenture has defined metaverse diplomacy in a more technical way, and they mentioned that it's how different forms of diplomacy can be better facilitated in the metaverse with Web3 technologies, which I think most of us on this call agree wholeheartedly. Then Fiker Institute has one of the more robust definitions. The metaverse contains the potential to alter existing diplomatic dynamics between countries, causing paradigm shifts in international relations. This is because virtual platforms negate differences in economic and demographic resources, thus introducing an unprecedented level of inclusivity to global affairs. This is actually one of my favorite definitions, and I've used this one the most. Also, University of South California has an intriguing one. They feel that avatars can be the future diplomats. And we've seen already several companies adopting a CEO that's fully AI powered. So it is not very far out to imagine that over the next few decades, we might have AI powered diplomats. So that's their vision about how this is shaping the future. So now that I shared a few of the definitions, let's talk a little bit about the global landscape that is driving global metaverse diplomacy. Of course, the evolving immersive realities that we're all witnessing are complementing the global multicultural and multi-generational workforce. And I think that's the reason why now is the moment for us to intervene, because we're seeing this shift in populations, this multi-global shift also in talent. And I think if we're doing a good job on advancing global diplomacy also for young generations, we can actually really shape the future in a way that's conducive to the sustainable goals that we want to achieve. Also, we see the rise of novel economies, which are the powerful economic engine to drive the metaverse that we all want to build. Increased investments in converging technologies, at least. When you look at just investments that are purely categorized as metaverse, they're not that high. But if you know how to look at converging technology investments that can accelerate the deployment of the metaverse, they're quite robust. And last but not least, we see quite a lot of tech diplomacy. So in a way, metaverse diplomacy can be a smaller component of a larger tech diplomacy movement that we're seeing. What are some of the latest trends? So we have seen diplomacy for not only tech, but also net zero diplomacy, cybersecurity diplomacy, diplomacy for advancing women. All those I think are important as well when we think about metaverse diplomacy. We can't do it in a vacuum. So they're all congruent. They need to be harmonized and carefully orchestrated so that we can achieve the goals we want. And then, of course, we're all familiar with the latest massive investments in a variety of scientific and technology solutions that are shaping not only the metaverse ecosystem, but also accelerating transition to Web3 and a quite significant growth of the industrial omniverse. A lot of companies just since January have pushed very strongly in announcing their digital strategy for the industrial industrial omniverse, which I think will help also the metaverse significantly. There are also a few mega trends as described by PricewaterhouseCoopers, and there are 4 mega trends that are influencing the whole economy and including metaverse and omniverse ecosystems are climate change and the rise of the net zero economy, the technological disruption and transformation we're witnessing, the demographic shifts, which I just mentioned a little bit earlier, and the fracturing world. It's interesting to see the way they describe a fracturing world, but definitely there are some tectonic shifts in the geopolitical and socioeconomic restructuring. When we look at technological advancements, this is a set of technologies that I compiled by looking at all the major tech outlook rankings. And I selected out of more than 20 rankings, the ones that consistently made it in the top 10. So this is my personal list that I think will have a major impact in us pushing for metaverse diplomacy. As I promised, I will also mention the challenges. And I think we're all very familiar with them because we dedicate our daily lives to overcoming them. These are legal, regulatory, interoperability, of course, our quest to develop international standards for the metaverse. Otherwise, we're going to have the same problems like we've had with numerous other emerging and frontier technologies, where we deploy too fast without appropriate standards and without appropriate KPIs and metrics. So I think that's another great mission for us, this group, to develop customized, standardized KPIs and metrics for the metaverse. And then, of course, cybersecurity and ethics are always present. In addition to the challenges, we also are presented with a lot of opportunities. And these are a few that I wanted to highlight. Evolution towards a global metaverse ecosystem. Right now, we see a lot of fragmentation, development of metaverse, smaller ecosystems. But in the future, we hope that these would coalesce into a global ecosystem. I also hope that we find a way to harmonize with the global industrial omniverse so that we don't have fragmentation in that regard as well, because that's a powerful engine that can elevate our efforts. And then, of course, integration with DEI and ESG is essential as well. Otherwise, we're going to once again repeat lessons, sad lessons from the past. And I would also like to highlight that we have an opportunity to embed into the fabric of the metaverse already everything that we need to do so that we can attain the 2030 and 2050 agenda faster, or maybe even surpass it. So all the indicators that are currently listed for UN 2030 agenda in the SDG 17s can be embedded very nicely into the metaverse tech architecture. And the same way the net zero tech indicators can be perfectly well embedded so that they're in the DNA of the metaverse instead of an afterthought. And as I already alluded to, my favorite part is always developing customized KPIs and OKRs for the emerging technologies. So as I mentioned, I think we need those for the metaverse as soon as possible. I would also like to point out that Ernst & Young and Meta have dedicated massive investments to develop the metaverse diplomacy. They pledged very specifically, and they have a group dedicated only for this. So in their view, substituting the physical and the virtual is what can get us to attain our goals. Here are just examples of how they envision each goal in the SDG group to be impacted. I'm going to not hone in on each. I just wanted to show that there are very concrete goals that they have outlined. And then I'll conclude in 1 minute with future directions. As we know, we're having a decade where the metaverse is expected to evolve and grow and mature and refine. It is our role to embed, like I mentioned, the sustainable opportunities into this evolution. And in my opinion, as Susan rightfully said, see, I didn't even know you're going to mention education, Susan, but it's the first one on my E list. I think there are 5 powerful E's that can help us in advancing metaverse diplomacy: education, employment, the environment, equity, and ethics. I'll conclude with this, and thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to hear all other talks today and tomorrow. I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you again for inviting me.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Ingrid. Yes, and I'm also pleased that I managed to spot your first E without even spotting it. Thank you so much. And Ingrid, a little later today, what time is it going to be? It's going to be at 6 p.m. UAE. We've got some live Q&A. So if you are hanging around, we'll be watching from some cues from the audience, and Emmanuel will be taking care of that. So thank you so much, Ingrid. We'll let you go now and see you later. And I'd like to actually, before I go on, to introduce Rohit, because Ingrid was so brilliant and in using time. John Scott, I wondered if you'd come on and just give us a little overview of the rest of today and the
Sure.
etc. And then Rohit will come to you. John Scott.
Fantastic. So very quickly, everyone. So the way this is going to work today, as you just saw, we're going to have presentations, we'll have some panels, and we're going to have Q&A that's going to be live. As Susan said, we're tracking to 10 to the hour or so. Sorry, 6 o'clock UAE time. So I would encourage you to, if you have a specific question for one of the presenters, if they're able to join us, to, of course, participate in that live Q&A at the top of the hour. If you have questions for the group that you wish to put into the chat, we'll do our very best to address those over time. And then as the day goes on, we'll have another visit by our friend Sharad in a conversation he'll be having with Nova. And then we have another panel, and we're going to go through this pretty quickly. I apologize in advance. One of our jobs is to keep things on time, and we're behind time. So I will stop talking and keep us moving forward, and wish you all a great day. So please actively participate. We'll do our best to get to your questions, and I look forward to the rest of your participation today. Thanks. On to you.
Thank you, John Scott. Actually, we're doing pretty well, I think, on time, unless I've muddled stuff up. So because we're right on the nose, or we've got a couple of minutes to spare coming into you, Rohit. So you might be a lucky chap and just have a minute or two extra. And you deserve it. Why? Because you carry that wonderful, wonderful title or label, because I don't mind labels, I don't know about you, of futurist. And of course, when we're being realist in the moment now, looking after time and looking after how we're feeling today, it's very, very important to be able to sense or know the future. So we thank you for that. And we also are pleased to know that you've been acknowledged for that, you know, with numerous awards, Rohit. And I think there needs to be another thank you. And that's thank you for being one of our newest meta shapers and immediately stepping up to the game, if you like, and coming on board here. So Rohit Talwar, I'll let you tell us all a little bit more about you. But post-pandemic scenarios, here we are, the future. Tell us more.
Well, thank you, Susan. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this session. And as you say, I'm a global futurist. So I spend my time working with corporations and governments around the world, helping them think about what are those forces and factors that might shape the future, what are the scenarios that could play out, and how do we prepare better today in order to make sure that the future isn't a shock, and also that we're ready to take advantage of the opportunities that might arise. So with that, let me jump straight into my session. If I can get sharing permission. I don't believe I have.
Have you got it there, Rohit? Should be
okay,
there.
yep, we've got it now. Can you see me?
You're on.
Excellent. So what I'm going to talk about is in the context of all of the exciting technological advances we're going to hear, what happens when they come together for humanity once these things start to come together? But also, how do we start to think beyond the technology around what it will mean to be human and how we navigate the world? So let's just jump straight in. I want you to imagine that it's February 21st, 2028, so just 4 years from now. You're at home, you're watching a movie on your screen, and you're getting excited. And the reason we know you're getting excited is that the screen is monitoring your microfacial expressions. Sensors on your body are monitoring oxygen flow, blood pressure, heart rate, all sorts of other factors. And your AI, your personal AI, is putting these together and saying this represents the pattern that corresponds with you being excited about going on holiday. So by the time the film has ended, your AI has already created some experiences for you in the metaverse to go and try out the different propositions you might see when you visited Japan. So you can feel the bed linens in the hotel room, smell the flowers in the gardens it suggests you visit, and taste the food in the best restaurants it wants you to sample. You choose the particular package you want and tell it which business model you want to use to pay for it. And we'll talk more about that in a second. Your AI goes off and negotiates the deal and everything's ready. On the day of travel, because you're such a busy person, we know that you're going to cut it late, but it's all right. You've got an autonomous vehicle, and the autonomous vehicle is authorized to bid to the cars next to it to get out of your way, making micro payments to them to help you accelerate. There's no problem about luggage because you don't have any. You're having it all 3D printed for you on arrival, or a wardrobe on demand service that will be waiting for you to choose what you want. When we get to the airport, you've already been security scanned in the car. All of the checks have been done. So you literally arrive at the side of the plane, you go up into your seat. In flight, you've chosen to have an induced sleep where you've chosen to have partly some dreams just to relax you, but partly to have downloaded in those dreams some core Japanese language phrases, some information about the places you're going to visit, because all of that will be dropped into your memory using various wireless devices. On arrival at your destination, you walk straight to your hotel room because facial recognition has identified you. You don't have to open the door lock with a key. Again, facial recognition does that. On the walls are digital wallpaper, so you can see images of the places you're going to see. You can do video conferences with your colleagues, or you can have connect calls with family. As you travel around the island, you can communicate with people directly, both using the language you've learned, but also instantaneous two-way translation. Everything you purchase is purchased with simply a wave of your hand or a flick of the eyeballs, a flick of your eyelids. Drones pick that stuff up. The next time you see it is when you get home back to your host country. On your return flight, your AI takes you through the business model for your flight, for your trip. So you've decided that on that trip, you are going to pay for it by capturing your experience in video and multi-sensory form so that people around the world can pay a micro payment to see segments of that experience. You're quite popular on social media, so you've been able to promote it. But as the quality of your experience gets shared, more and more followers arrive, and more people pay a tiny micro payment to participate. And we have to remember that probably no more than 2 billion people on this planet will ever fly to another destination. So how do we reach the others? It's with these kinds of experiences. So actually your AI shows you that you've made a profit on the trip. But obviously there was a risk there. So you backed that risk by tokenizing your home, where you took your $100,000 home, you turned it into 1,010,000 tokens, and you took a portion of those and said, I'll underwrite the trip with these if I don't make enough money through that experience. What we've looked at there, just those services that I quickly flashed through, are potentially $8 to $10 trillion worth of industry that will be created as these technologies come together. And all of the technologies I've talked about are going to be explored in more detail. So the question is, how do we navigate this? Well, on the one hand, for businesses, this represents an incredible opportunity. We keep seeing the forecasts. No one knows for sure, but what we can see is entirely new industries will be born out of individual technologies transforming the way we do things, but also enabling businesses to transform what they do to take advantage of the technology. But also the convergence of these technologies are going to create these new opportunities, like the multi-sensory ones I talked about. And so there's a fantastic opportunity there. But also we have to understand that as people begin to understand the power of AI, and even generative AI is blowing people's minds. Last night we did a 1-hour session, a 1-hour hackathon with leaders from the financial services industry, where we had them create marketing campaigns in 1 hour, where they created the brief, script, the visuals, the radio advert, and a video advert of 30 seconds to go onto TikTok. these people were blown away by what they themselves could do in an hour, where we only gave them very light guidance on a few tools to start with. Now think about that as just the start point to the potential of artificial general intelligence, which will give us AI that is as capable of humans across all our cognitive domains. It may not have consciousness, but to most people it won't matter if the technology can effectively think. Whether it's thinking for itself or mimicking thinking, most of us won't mind. So on the one hand, that is a phenomenal opportunity. It's potentially phenomenally exciting, but it's also massively scary for most of us because we don't know what that would mean. We don't know how that would play out in our lives, what that would mean in terms of how we spend our time, how we feed ourselves, how we look after our families, what does it mean for our communities? And so we see a lot of fear there. There's this kind of growing fear that this giant beast, multi-tentacle beast, is just going to take over the world and we're going to become servants of the machine until the machine doesn't want us. So what can we do about that? Well, there's two paths we can follow. The first is to enhance our brains and bodies. And we already see this going on, whether it's at the chemical level with people taking nootropics, enhancers, if you like, pharmaceutical form that can enhance our cognitive functions, our physical performance. We're seeing people learn how to create new highs of physical performance, whether it's through ice baths, the Wim Hof stuff, a whole range of things where people are unleashing the potential. But then there's the genetic, the electronic, the if you like, the physical enhancements, titanium body part replacements and exoskeletons, genetic implants and genetic manipulations that give us higher power senses. So the ability to hear like a dog, to smell like a cat, to see like a bat. These all felt like science fantasy just a few years ago. Now we're seeing the beginnings of these happening. We're seeing also a huge amount of information and excitement around various brain-computer interfaces. So we've just seen Neuralink getting a lot of press because the first humans had it installed. But over time, we will reach the position, or we'll very likely reach the position where we can upload and download information directly to the human brain. Now imagine the potential that gives us to create a hive mind and share our ideas and thoughts with other people, but also the potential for people to steal our thoughts. If we decide that what we actually want to do is to have an exobrain, where we have a second brain that sits outside our physical body, where we offload information, a bit like the hard drive on our computer, then obviously the risks around that being hacked, or the risks around our own interface being hacked, and if you like, criminal thoughts being embedded into us, or our deepest thoughts being taken from us, there are huge risks here. And across society, people have different kinds of fears about what this kind of transhumanist notion could mean for what it means to be human and what it means when we start to create these new species or subspecies of humanity. So the other path that's very exciting to a lot of people is to say, how do we actually become more human? An unenhanced but more human individual that's looking beyond technology and develop the capabilities to enhance our own lives, the lives of our families, our societies, our organizations, and our countries, knowing that all these technological advances are going to happen. And what we see is 4 common traits in those individuals and organizations that are really not being surprised by the future and who are able to make good choices to enhance their own futures, independent of what the technology is doing. And those are learning, innovation, foresight, and transformational thinking. And the first is around learning at speed. It's no longer good enough to say, okay, I'll go on a course in a couple of weeks' time, or when I get a spare 10 minutes, I'll learn about that. The pace of technological change is such that we need to be learning consistently and continuously, and giving ourselves permission to spend time every day, whether it's reading, listening to podcasts, learning from our colleagues, just spending time out in the world to see what's changing, watching videos. But we need to have that blend of learning about what's changing, learning about the new technologies that are coming through, learning about how we can use them, and learning more about how society is adapting. Luckily, the technology helps us. It serves up a lot of that content, whether it's micro videos, whether it's tools like ChatGPT or Poe or whatever, giving us insights. Yesterday, I was introduced to a new chat tool called Grok, Groq, and it is literally typing the answers as you are finishing the question. It is mind-blowing. It makes ChatGPT look like old world postal delivery. And so we need to be learning how to incorporate these things, encouraging our colleagues to go out and learn, to share within our teams, having that constant learning environment and making learning something that we celebrate so that we're constantly equipping ourselves with the tool to keep moving forward. The second is around innovation. Every organization says it's good at doing innovation. Some say they have common processes. Most often when I see people saying they're good at doing innovation, what they mean is they're quite good at building computer systems. But we also see that in somewhere around 70% of all tech digitization projects fail to deliver on their desired goals. And the main reason is they fail in the first meeting because you have a mismatch in expectations between all the people in the room. They don't leave with a common agenda, and they don't leave with a common sense of what the innovation steps are that they're going to go through, from a clearly defined problem statement to a clearly understandable need or benefit they want to create for the customer or the end user, and then working back from there to a commonly agreed set of tech prototypes and experiments through which we get to the desired answer. We just miss a lot of that. So actually having those common approaches to innovation and common approaches to how we innovate in our lives with our families, having some common tools so we can look at things in the same way. And that enables us to also be able to act on foresight. And we think this is very critical. When starting a new project, when starting some new choice in our lives, what assumptions are we making about the future? What scanning have we done about the world around us and how it might change that could help us make sure what we're doing is robust? So if we're choosing a new career, how do we make sure it's future-proof, that it's a career that ensures us some longevity? If we're doing a project or starting a new venture or a new division, how do we make sure we've tested that against some information about what's coming over the horizon and some different possible scenarios? And really making sure that everything we do is future-proofed. And this event is a perfect opportunity to do some of that future-proofing. And the final one is that transformational thinking that says, rather than just carrying on down the path we're going on and automating a process or replacing it, what if we were to start with the question of, what if we were starting again? How would we do this product, this process, or this organization? It doesn't mean we'll replace them completely, but allowing ourselves that blank sheet of paper really gives us the potential to design around what the technologies enable for us, but also to make choices that say, well, what if I was doing the next stage of my career without my history? What would I choose to do? Would I choose to go with the tech, or would I choose to create something that's outside the tech mainstream? But it's by asking those questions that we give ourselves the liberty to act. And so when we put all those things together, the advances that we see in technology, the possibilities, the choice of going the transhuman route or going down the learning, innovation, foresight, transformational thinking route, we have choices. But for all of us, the ultimate thing we have to do is to learn some new dance routines. You can't learn how to dance by standing on the side and writing a business plan or doing a script for it. You have to get on the dance floor. You have to look ugly. You have to kick other people, tread on their feet, trip over your own feet, elbow people, embarrass yourself, embarrass your partners. But we have to accept that we've got to do that now because the music is changing, and the music is actually changing such that there are 6 to 20 dance tunes playing at the same time. And that's the new normal we have to get used to, that we may never get perfect at dancing any of these routines. And 60% may be the best we can hope for and may be good enough to enable us to navigate and move forward rather than trying to get perfection, never getting there and ending up far further behind. So that's been a fairly rapid race through some of my thoughts about how we can prepare for a future with and beyond technology. And with that, I'm going to hand you back to Susan. And I don't know if you want to ask any questions now or whether we're going to move straight on.
Thank you so much, Rohit. And you did so brilliantly. Not only did you take us fast forward into the future, you brought us right back right on time, right on the nail. Thank you so much. And we aren't going to do Q&A immediately now. We're going to chat with Elisabetta first of all. But I just wanted to honour you on behalf of everyone in the chat who really, really got quite excited about everything there. You've even got Sharad wishing that he'd studied to be a futurist. But of course, as we all know, you can be a futurist, Sharad, and indeed you are. In fact, you all can be in the room. And we also did get some words of caution and, not quite, feeling it, or just that sort of bit of discomfort, like, for example, from Carla. But I no doubt Emmanuel will bring that in the room. But and what came to me was that maybe instead of artificial intelligence, or as well as, we can start to talk artificial individuality in the collective. So AI having another definition, Rohit, and thank you for nodding at that. But we'll let you go now, and we're going to bring in your MetaShaper colleague, Elisabetta Rotolo. Elisabetta, are you there in the room? I'm sure you are.
I'm here.
Well, here you go. Oh, how wonderful. And I just want to, again, share my excitement that you are bringing into the room today the conversation around the arts. So we've talked a lot about education, and we've talked about new education. So if you like, the STEM, the STEM that we all know about. And here's you bringing in the STEAM and really talking, giving us some narrative around that dance, to use a word that Rohit just pulled up, between the arts and education, and indeed technology. So I'm going to give it straight over to you, Elisabetta, because we're doing so well on time. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Suzanne, for the introduction. I'm just trying to be really as fast as I can, because I know that we are a little bit late, I think. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here and to show my perspective regarding how these immersive and emerging technologies are reshaping the arts, and of course also the education. I have a background, over 20 years of experience at international level as a chief strategic marketing officer and business strategist for global organizations such as Walt Disney, Gucci, and the Olympic Games, State of New York, and many others. So in these few minutes that we have together, I think over 50 minutes, we're going to touch a few points about what is the changing scenarios with all these immersive and emerging technologies, and why what we call immersive story living, we started to call immersive story living since over 10 years ago, because we have this experience at international level in this immersive market is bringing in our world, and why these XR emerging technologies and Web3 in the Metaverse how are we shaping the arts and the education sector, and particularly, we combine not only immersive arts, but as MIAT in our company, we combine academy, because we train the talents of the futures, and we do immersive production. So we also are art tech creators, and we have a research lab. So we combine these three big practices. So what is next in our sector? We all know that the development of immersive and emerging technologies, XR, AR, but also gaming experiences, is intersecting with new attitudes, especially of younger generations, who are actually also the driving force behind the Web3 in the Metaverse, who are not video first anymore. So they don't watch, things, they don't watch television, and they just want to interact and be, actively participated to to create experiences. Most of them are now already growing with AI photorealistic virtual companions, and this leads to the need to create a meaningful experiences, the relevance of self-expression, which is pivotal, and the need to educate the overall ecosystem to embrace the potential of these immersive and emerging technologies and not to be scared of them, but with an ethical and human-centric approach, because we talk every day with huge brands, we work for huge brands, we educate, we create programs also for universities, and we can see that people and the whole ecosystem is really scared about what's happening. We are in a new anthropological moment, I would say that more than a technological one, because we need to create new languages and new experiences. All of these technologies have different kind of pipelines and different kind of languages, and they need to be approached with different kind of contents and experiences. We work daily at international level, and we see all over the world the convergence of these immersive and emerging technologies, creating strong intersections between arts and technology. And this leads to what we actually started to call story living over 10 years ago, which includes immersive but also interpersonal, interactive, and shared. And one key word is co-created experiences that actively involve artists, creators, developers, audience, and at international level, where you don't want to watch the story anymore, but you want to be the story, you want it to be the experience with a very high level of agency. When you create, you understand that talking about technologies is something, but when you create with these technologies is something completely different, because you need to understand all different kinds of pipelines. You need to educate and re-educate the entire ecosystem, but also the people who will be creating these experiences. And this is because actually the future of story living will be even more subjective with the real-time and immersive technologies and these incredible intersection and also the gaming and the gamification language, which is very different from the gaming experience. You can co-design directly, immediately in real time the experience. It will be transmedia and multi-language, which means that any time that we create an experience, is pivotal that we think about that experience with an immersive and transmedia multi-language, because particularly these new generations are over all different kind of platforms. So they're not really just watching television. So also what's happening in the immersive art world is reshaping all new business model at international level. And we will be volumetric, because with the advent also of other technologies that, sometimes I can see that people don't talk about, but they're pivotal, like volumetric capture, motion capture, but also immersive sound and all game engines with which you can create a virtual productions, but also virtual reality experience, which are two completely different things. You need to acquire new skills. You need to be capable to create these meaningful experiences, which works very well, because everything will be highly three-dimensional, which means that not only you have to acquire the skills, but also a company are reshaping completely their business models and their evolution. So, but what are the challenges actually and the skills that future talents needed to acquire to navigate this new world? Actually, emerging and immersive technologies will be the next computing platform. I think that now it's quite clear. It's not just an assumption or a hope. And in the coming years, we are seeing the growth of following trends already, of course, happening. Generative AI, which is actually involving the audience in real time, and they can create a process through Gen AI tools assistant, because this is another important concept. We take IP, for instance, that existing of art or entertainment, and we transform it with AI. It becomes completely, interactive and real time. Then we create virtual worlds where you can jump in and then recreate completely that experience. Spatial computing was pivotal because it's a kind of, let me use this word, mashup of all these technologies that we have been using for years, but progressing towards the complete digitalizations of objects people and also locations to enhance interactions with virtual content and make them more interconnected. And also the growth of augmented reality is demonstrating that is like reconfiguring our workflow. That is like impacting heavily in our lives from like in different fields, entertainment, retail, shopping, virtual assistants, art, tourism. And again, virtual productions is like a completely redefining the way that we are actually creating, but also consume events and contents. Let me just reduce the volume. This is how we approach these technologies in our international immersive studio and in our international eTech Academy. So we train and we create immersive art exhibitions, making this kind of highly convergence of immersive and emergent technologies. We teach with highly hands-on and sensory interactive workshops and international master classes. We create digital artworks, becoming the first NFTs in the world using 3D, very complex shader systems, generative AI, all integrated in like one production. Immersive filming, because we're now creating like technologies like 200 grams that you put in your like pocket, you click, and then it's all around you. And then augmented reality portals where you can like step in physically just using your telephone in like in faraway places all over the world. So we are in a moment where we needed to create new languages and we need to create new experiences more like than technology. Let's talk about GenAI a little bit. GenAI, we also produce in GenAI and we also teach GenAI, but we have trained over like 200 people and now we're training 1,000 people all over the world, spanning from artists, global award winner, filmmakers, producers, C-levels of corporates. We are creating GenAI tasks within corporations because they are starting to create with GenAI. And what you need to teach is not just like a technical things, but how you become the creative director with your GenAI tools assistant, because you need to understand how to work with the GenAI. And you need to also inject like the ethical, human-centric approach that you need to do when you really work with the AI, not just when you talk about the AI. So we need to understand how to teach how to work with the AI with this human-centric approach, which is pivotal. And why is it pivotal? Because with the advent of Metaverse and the AI together, we will have a meta-intelligence. And the meta-intelligence will be like a collective intelligence that emerges from a combination of vast interconnected virtual environments and sophisticated AI systems. And actually in this scenario where we have generations who wants to co-create, AI will play a pivotal role and a crucial role because it will process, analyze lots of data generated with the co-created experiences within the metaverse. So this could lead to advanced forms of machine learning, actual decision making in real time. But it is also very challenging from like one side. But of course, it raises also kind of issues. So like data privacy, algorithm biases, control over such powerful intelligence. We need careful attention, and particularly to ensure that intelligence operates ethically and beneficially for humanity. We saw like also the speech of my colleague Ross is very, very interesting what it can happen. So basically, I always say that GenAI is a governmental issue more than anything else, referring to the fact that it needs to be regulated through international corporations of nations and governments. On the left, you can see this proportion of data that the AI feeds itself on. 90% of the data comes from US and China, which means that the culture that is inside GenAI in this moment is that one. So the diet is completely imbalanced. This is why it's necessary to cooperate to address the risk, for instance, of reducing diversity of opinions of other marginalizing or already marginalized voices, but also lack of understanding of the real world, because Gen AI in this moment is not informed by observations of the real world or other key aspects of scientific methodology, nor it is aligned with the human and social values. The use of content without consent is a huge issue, or worsening digital poverty. So just to sum up and to close, we have architects, profiles who are working now and will be working in the future much more. They are divergent minds, integrated artistic and very deep technological expertise. They need practical, hands-on training for people who understand this world, who can create with this world, with a particular pedagogy behind it, hands-on, also sensory trainings, and particularly high level of ethical, critical, reflective thinking practices, because we all need that. And I leave you with the question: how do we balance ethics with profitability? So thank you so much for being with me. If you want to get in contact, I'm here.
Wow, thank you so much, Elisabetta. I mean, first of all, this timing is, accurate timing is becoming such a wonderful trend. But over and above that, Elisabetta, I mean, you've really stirred the room, as did your speakers before you. I mean, really, I mean, who was it? Somebody there. I mean, really, really, somebody there. I can hear Elisabetta's gone. I can hear somehow I can hear.
No, sorry, I'm here. I was muted.
You're here. Oh, you're okay. Great, yeah. And so I just wanted to. I could hear an echo, but I just wanted to honour someone in the audience there, Anita, who really loved your phrase, and I think we all did. The new anthropological moment that we're all experiencing now. So, I mean, thank you so much for reshaping art for us today. And your fellow speaker, Rohit, called that phenomenal. So thank you so much. Now, if you would happily stay in the room, Elisabetta, I think I just saw Emmanuel come on screen. So Emmanuel Casada, there he is, how wonderful, who goes under the acronym EQ, bringing in emotional intelligence in the shape of this wonderful Gen Z entrepreneur. And we have another Gen Z entrepreneur on later, Alistair. Can I leave it to you now, Emmanuel, to do 10 minutes of live Q&A? Over to you. Emmanuel, are you there on good feed? Can I just ask, is Emmanuel's been, can he be heard?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
Emmanuel is here.
Okay. Apologize. I had technical. This tech Gen Z had technical problems. I think that my computer was collapsing, but I think that we can progress on this view. So yeah, guys, we're going to have 3 minutes of Q&A sessions. I received some questions from the public. And it will be fantastic if we can have some panelists with us. And if not, I'm happy to respond those questions. Thank you, Petra.
Yeah.
So in those questions,
Emmanuel, you have in the room Rohit, Elisabetta. I can't see Ingrid, but you have Rohit and Elisabetta. Over to
I think that this will be fantastic for Elisabetta. So Elisabetta, obviously we see that the AI is consuming a lot of infrastructure. This is going to be extremely expensive, not only for companies as well for governments and individuals to onboard the vision that I think that this infrastructure is going to play on a healthy way economically for the scalability of AI and Metaverse.
Emmanuel, sorry, did you talk to me?
Yes. If
I'm very sorry about, I lost you. Can you just repeat the question? I'm very sorry about that.
No problem. So we're seeing that the infrastructure needs to have some scalability around AI and Metaverse. Obviously, all this is extremely expensive for governments, companies, and users. How do you see that we can progress on scalability without affect that much in the infrastructure?
Yes, I know. It is true. I cannot say no, it's not true. It is, and of course, like as part of the ethical issues that I tried to raise before, which is massively important for me, also not as a CEO and founder of Miat, but as a person. Yes, there will be like a big issue around infrastructure, and of course also energy and many other things. So the only thing I could say, which maybe could sound a little bit banal, but we also have, many strategic partnerships with also giant techs in the US, like those who are actually creating these technologies, and we talk to them a lot about these. And I want to say this, I want to use this word hope, because this is like a really hope, apart from the fact that I also have like institutional roles around the world, because I'm a part of the central board of Immersive, the European Federation for Immersive and Emerging Technology. So I have an active role in that. They need to use CSR responsibly, which means that they have in practice CSR rules and governance inside their companies. And we, of course, pushed a lot at international level that they maintain what they say about the next level of infrastructure and energy and the way that will be used and created. But yes, absolutely, there is like an issue around that. And this is not the only one, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think that thanks for this beautiful reply. I think that right now it's one of the main issues that we need to solve as humanity, and as well in a political level, because like the basis of the next future, and obviously with the ESG standards, this has to come over. Okay, Elizabeth, thanks a lot for this beautiful presentation, for these beautiful answers. I'm going to pass the time to Susan. She's going to be introducing the next panelist. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Elizabeth.
On that's very good of you. Thank you very much, Emmanuel, because I did make an error there and saved 10 minutes for Q&A when it's 5. So sorry, Rohit, we'll get to you another time. So now we're going on to our first panel, which is very, very exciting. And we have Nadia Bester, who's going to be hosting that panel. I take it that everybody is in the room. I'm going to let Nadia introduce her panelists. But Nadia, I just want to say, actually comes from the future too, and this time from the future of NFTs. And she also brings a lot of art into that, as well as a lot of tech, but this time through the lens of production, camera production and film production. And I also am very excited to hear, Nadia, that you are the author of the book, Web3 Explained. And as we can all hear today, however far we get into Web3, we all need it explaining. So let me stop now and take it over to you for 25 minutes Q&A. Over to you.
Thank you, Susan. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone joining us from all around the world. It's amazing to see all of the comments. Welcome to the opening panel of an incredible summit, and we will be talking about harmonizing tech and talent. Now, this summit invites all of us into a very vital conversation about building human-centric technologies to create a future that is not only innovative and profitable, but also supports us in areas where we lack, as well as preserving the best of what humanity has to offer. And so as our panel is going to be diving into this theme, we'll be looking at why and how to leverage technology, not only for the innovation and the profit side of things, but really to support and to benefit the greater good of society and humanity. So our panelists bring a wealth of experience to our discussion today from the fields of Web3, AI, marketing, brand building, etc. Although all of them are aligned to fostering inclusion, sustainability, and growth in the digital age. So Annelies Boysen is the founder architect behind Your Global Village, a Web3 aligned global business community. Annelies is a champion for small businesses in the digital arena, and she is a top 100 women of the future in emerging tech. We also have Majuzu Daniel Moses. He is the driving force of the Mo Center, dedicated to responsibly using tech and AI for social good. Majuza's work focuses on inclusion for vulnerable and marginalized communities. Then we have Enrico Nonino, a senior marketing executive with over 15 years of experience across multiple sectors. Enrico's worked with brands like Spotify with Last Minute, and he's now advising on AI, music tech, and Web3 strategies. And then finally, we have Akash Agrawal, who brings 2 decades of leadership marketing and brand strategy with a history of success at giants like Sony, Nike, and Walmart. Akash works with companies to help navigate the complexities of growth and technology integration. So to set the tone for the conversations that's going to follow, not only in this panel, but throughout the entire summit, I'd like to ask from each of you, in the context of a rapidly evolving digital landscape. I mean, this is real life sci-fi in the making. It's the new definition of globalization. I would like to know, how do you define the word technology? What does it mean? Who is the talent that we are referring to? And why is it important that we create a symbiotic relationship between these two? Annelies, let's start with you.
Thank you, Naja, and great to be here on the panel. So to really keep it simple, technology for me is not a single thing, it's actually a spectrum. And if we reduce it further, I think Rohit did a fabulous job to tell us about the whole wide range of technologies we're dealing in. But if we take AI on this book end and we take it all the way to the other side, Web3, there's everything in between. So there's a whole spectrum that we're dealing with. If we're talking team, I think it serves us well to talk beyond the narrow confines of just my immediate employees. I think one should include that whole ecosystem of people who are going to help you achieve your goals. Why do we need to harmonize those two things? Because I believe they're actually pulling 2 different directions at the moment. Let's just pause for a moment on the human side. Technology is causing disruption. Disruption is uncomfortable. It requires change. It's not something that it sits well with us. Technology is also something that is potentially displacing people. Studies show that potentially 15% of the global workforce are going to be displaced by AI. It's not just change, it's also loss. Yet on the other hand, technology is helping you to do things faster, better, cheaper. And it is enhancing a lot of things. So these two are almost polar opposites, but we have to bring them together. And that's why we're having this conversation. I think at the underlying message here is, where do these tech advancements leave the human in the conversation? I think that's what we're talking about.
Beautiful question to ponder. Majuza, you work with people, segments of society that don't necessarily have a voice. So from your perspective, how would you define technology? Who is the talent, and why do these 2 things need to be in a symbiosis?
All right. Thank you very much. From leveraging technology for those who are not included in tech conversations globally, particularly from the global south and rural communities, for those who are disadvantaged and for those who are vulnerable groups. Technology is the use of scientific knowledge and to develop things that could add to their welfareism and create sustainable development. And then for this group, technology should be used as a tool and not as a device of war. Technology should be used as a tool to create sustainability, peace, progress, and also ensure social cohesion. And it is pertinent that the persons who are the talents are those who have the raw abilities, but yet not discovered. Those who have the talents in the rural areas, those who are disadvantaged, or do not have the capacity, do not have the required materials to hone those talents together in view of their talents and all that. So how do we maximize and harmonize this? Is to give voice to those who don't have a voice, is to give opportunity for those who do not have the opportunity, is to ensure that they gain visibility, and also to create a nexus where their talents will meet the technology at hand. And then for this, I believe we can create a more sustainable future for those marginalized and less privileged communities.
Thank you, Majuzu, for that important reminder that we are speaking for everyone, not only those in the room. Akash, you have worked with big names in the global business sector. Please, from your perspective, what is technology, what is talent, and why do these two things go together? Why should they go together?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for that question. And I think the size of the organization here today really does not matter, because I think the technologies that we are seeing, they're a huge leveling force. So I think that is something which you really need to understand, because it's really up to you what you really want to do to that. So what we're seeing today in terms of technology is a very, very vast landscape, and it's developing very, very fast. So what does it bring to you? Typically what we're talking, so what are these technologies? It's already been covered, but nonetheless, it's about AI, it's about blockchain, it's about spatial computing, it's about robotics. So there's a very, very large spectrum, but what does it really do for you is it brings to you opportunities for productivity and efficiency, but then more importantly, how does it impact the human aspect of that? So it is about automation, but then within that, we also need to look at the augmentation part of it. So how does it augment you as a human, as an employee, as a business leader, really? Going on to the next part of your question, when you talk of talent, so what is this talent really when you look at it from an organization perspective? What are those skills and competencies that I really need to put on the bench for me right now here today, so that I can build not only just be successful in the future, but also thrive in the future. So that becomes important. And amongst the various things from a technological talent and skill standpoint, what becomes important today is your critical thinking and your problem solving skills. I think those really rise to the top, because that's what's required. And we talk in terms of IQ, we talk in terms of EQ. But again, because this is a very, very fast evolving space, I think you really need to add an AQ to that, which is your adaptability quotient from a talent perspective. So I think that's something which you really need to work upon. The last part of the question, I think you're talking about why harmonize. So I think I will be probably picking up a few things from what Andy's and other speakers have said before. So number one, of course, is the skill gap. We definitely need to harmonize, from the skill gap perspective. But the other two important things, which I think is one which was touched upon earlier from ethical considerations, because as Elizabeth also talked about, AI is getting trained on a whole lot of data, which might be centric or common to certain areas of the world today. So therefore, ethical considerations rise to the top. And then another one is your human-centric design. So when we are developing, either using it or you're developing for others, you need to bring in harmonize definitely for a human-centric design, so that we talked about inclusivity, so that gets built into the systems or solutions that you're building in. And the last would be a workforce displacement, of course. So when World Economic Forum talks about a 14 million net job loss in 3 years, it is definitely scary. So we need to be inclusive. We need to have human-centric design so you can minimize that.
Akash, I think we all made a note of the AQ, so we are all writing down adaptability quotient, and that's what we're going to number one takeaway from today so far. Enrico, you have worked with big names, and you are also working full-time in the Web3 space, so you have experience with very different groups of people and very different kinds of thinking. So with the leg in both worlds, or a foot at least, maybe a whole body in both worlds, how have you come to experience what is technology and what is this talent that we are talking about?
Well, thank you. It's a really good question. I mean, like, having worked so many years into the technology, strangely enough, I never asked myself what technology really is, because it was like, a sort of, an overall, let's say, layer of everything I've done so far. And I would probably use the same kind of, way to describe it. To me, I think technology has always been and always is a sort of, how can I say, like a sort of, propeller layer across all the different industries and triggers and innovations of human beings in general, humanity. So it's strange because now that you're asking me this, and realizing how I'm responding that to you, technology is really a kind of a sort of overall layer of everything we are doing right now.
the reason we are here at this time speaking about technology is something that is telling about what you're asking before, right? So I feel that is quite that, and leading to the talent. I mean, I work for consumers, I work for companies, I work B2B, B2C. And what I feel, the talent sometimes is someone who really brings and triggers that innovation, that technology forward. But sometimes it's, the talent is just a machine, right? That helps you trigger a new kind of, innovation out, and then, leads and raises the bar to the technology. So I feel that, closing the question, the relationship that these two entities needs to have is more and more like, a sort of, symbiotic, as you put, connection. And the way I see is that talents and teams and technology, I would probably see, technology as sort of, a way to expand the talent, a way to expand the teams, and honestly, a way to expand, the triggers of innovations.
Thank you all so much for those beautiful answers. I think that really sets a foundation and a tone for the conversations in the rest of the summit. As a follow-up question, I think you've all kind of encapsulated the fact that we are inseparable from technology. It's not that there's humans versus, because we can already not imagine a life without technology. Certainly all of us here are here only, as Enrico just pointed out, solely because of the help of technology. So with all of what is happening right now, and there's a lot happening every day when you open the media, when you open YouTube, when you open social media, the next big thing that's going to kill X industry and kill Y technology is in your face. So with all of this that we are being inundated with, and the pace of technology is so incredibly rapid, how do people prepare themselves while at the same time take care of themselves? How do we find that balance? Akash, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, sure. So great question. And I think that is where we are all struggling. So one is the rapid development of the technology, and a lot of conversations that I've had or I continue to have with business leaders and CXOs and others. So we need to maybe take a step back and say that what really are the challenges as to why they are not moving forward, and so that it becomes a part of who they are and what they do and how do they incorporate it within their own organizations and within their own career path as well. So some of the barriers that I typically see is one is really in terms of the complexity, because these things are very intricate for most people, and these concepts and jargons are all around, so that becomes a barrier. Rapid evolution of technology because is a challenge for most of the people. There's uncertainty because the protocols, the standard, the processes and everything is developing very, very fast. So if I was to incorporate something within my company or organization, will it still be relevant tomorrow or not? Then after that comes the issues of security, issues in terms of the ethical dilemma that people have, because if I'm an organization and a one that is concerned about my customers and others, is this the right time for me to incorporate and roll out something? Because there are ethical dilemmas that I may not be even aware of. So how is it going to impact my brand? Beyond that is regulatory risk and also the cultural resistance that you might have within an organization, because that represents how open you are to experimentation and how open you are to accepting failure, right? But having said that, how do you even make a beginning? So I think the first and foremost is about digital literacy. So while I talked about a few of these barriers, the moment you get into digital literacy in terms of trying to teach yourself as to what really these technologies are, what are the capabilities, what it can do and what it cannot do, most of these barriers will begin to settle down for you. So I think that is the first and the foremost step that you need to take to start on that journey, first at your own level. And after that is what you bring in terms of harmonizing your talent within the organization. There's a whole lot of things that you can do in terms of strategic alignment of your goals with your talent strategy. And again, another important thing to remember is that these technologies are cross-functional, cross-domain, cross-industry. So this is not the domain of your IT department or your innovation department or your strategy teams. So bring them up to speed along with you yourself in terms of your digital literacy program, so that what will happen is the AQ that I talked about, I think you all will begin that journey all together. So that is a thought that I would leave with on this question.
Thank you, Akash. Enrico, from your experience, what is the best way to balance these worlds healthily?
Yeah, I will be very, very quick, Naja, and I would say just one thing, and it's simplify. I think the more we simplify the level of transmission of the information and how the technology is passed from talent to not talent people and machines, we will probably win. So probably our role, I would say, is just to try to make this more digestible and more simplified for everyone.
Thank you, Majuzu. What about you?
I think, first of all, we need to ensure that in adapting technology to humanity, we must ensure that we must adopt rather a multi-stakeholder approach. Everybody should be part of the conversation. It's quite a pity that there are some less privileged and disadvantaged groups that are never part of the conversation on technology. And if we're to make technology a universal phenomenon, everyone from the roots of the rural areas in the global south to the global north, they must be part of the conversation. We're talking about algorithm. These algorithms should also put in consideration the different races, the different languages, the different ethos, culture, and every practices prevalent in different regions. And when we're talking about adaptation, it should be not just multi-stakeholder, and it should also consider the popular consciousness of the people. So we must ensure that technology is not just a universal, a global thing, but it trickles down even to the barest minimum of communities. And everyone must be involved because technology is not just for one man, it's a universal thing, and we must apply it so.
Beautifully said, Annalise. Thank you. Please take it forward.
Sure. So Nadia, I think you asked quite a complex question there. How do we stay kind of upright in all of this? So a few thoughts on this very quickly. I believe, actually, I don't think I believe it. I think it's not about technology, it's about how you look at it. And I think that is the biggest challenge in our organizations as well, is you need to change not how you look at it, but also how your team looks at it. And I think it comes down to three areas that I've noticed. First is timeline. I think we highly overestimate or underestimate the time that it's going to take for things to actually settle in and technology to be a fixture there. And in both those cases, you're actually going to lose out. So as we've heard before, get started. You can't learn how to dance if you stand on the sidelines. You just get used to it. So that's the first one. The second thing is business as usual. I think it's a misnomer. There is no such thing anymore. It's an evolving business as usual, maybe. And we need to look at, is it an enhancement or does it really change everything fundamentally for us? You need to look at it in those two different lights as well. And then the third thing, I think specifically with Web3 coming down the pipeline, which brings a philosophy of agency and collaboration with it, we need to redefine what we see as team, because it's not just the contributors to your mission, it's also the owners, the co-owners, it is the contractors, it might be your financiers. So we need to really encapsulate all of that in our thinking. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I believe that it is technology that is going to help us become more human, in the sense of we come back to our creative essence. It allows us that. And if we hold on to, but that's what it's supposed to do, you're going to be fine, because then you'll be able to balance everything out.
Heartfelt thank you to these incredible panelists for your insights today. I think there was so much that you touched on that will continue to be expanded on throughout this conference. So to the audience, I hope that you stay tuned throughout the rest of the summit. And once again, thank you so much to MetaShapers Global and also to my amazing panelists.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Well, huge congratulations to you all. And again, thank you so much for doing so well on time, just like 30 seconds over. And that leads us into a wonderful session now with Dr. Jacques Ludic. Jacques, thank you for being in the room. I'm actually not going to do much of an introduction for you, really. Let's just leave the time in your room. But suffice it to say that I know and have read that you first mooted and studied and did your master's in AI, I believe, in 1989. And here we are, fast forward to 2024. So Jacques, I mean, let's take it over for us. Democratizing AI. shaping the smart technology era for everybody's benefit. Over to you, Jacques. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. It's fantastic to be here. And thanks to Sharad and Andrea, the whole team. It's wonderful to be part of this MetaShapers event. I'm going to start straight away with my presentation. So I'm going to share my desktop here very quickly and just quickly put it in full screen mode. Okay. Close that.
That's good, Jacques. Full screen is on.
Fantastic. Thank you, Susan. Okay, so yeah, so it's fantastic to be here. I wrote a book on democratizing AI, shaping a better future in the smart technology era. And the title here is slightly changed here. We say shaping the smart technology era for everyone's benefit. And it's emphasizing that we can do something about this era to make sure it's human-centric, it's really serving the purpose of humanity, of civilization. So, and that is really very much part of what I'm really driving towards. My massive transformative purpose is really to shape that better future. And although I'm a technologist, I would love to see that we optimize quality of life for as many people as possible. And we shouldn't let technology dictate or smart technology dictate. It should be used for our benefit. So as long as we do that, we're on the right track. So in this presentation, short presentation, 15 minutes, I'll be delving into this a little bit. Obviously in my book that came out before ChatGPT and all these kind of things, I talked about the impact of AI, and I actually have a slide that talks about the smart technology era. And some people talk about the AI era because it's such a dominant smart technology that's really sits on top of the data of the internet and what effectively the industrial internet and the Internet of Things provide. And we've got so much data available, so we can create these models to unlock tremendous value. The more sensors we put into the world, the more we instrument humans, the more we instrument our world, the more data becomes available. And that empowers the smart technology era. That makes it even more powerful to do or enable us to do actually more things. So, and another thing is, and I think I've always talked about this kind of exponential curves, and we see the speed of technology change. But I think we probably have more believers now that actually see right in front of our eyes how quickly things change. And as humans, we see time as linear, but we actually now see all these dynamics, the speed of technology change, the fusion of all these smart technologies. And specifically in this presentation, I talk about AI and Web3, but there's a bunch of other technologies that interplay as well. There's biotech, there's nanotech, there's neurotech. We talk about brain-computer interfaces, all sorts of different things, robotics, drones, all of that is making a big impact. So how do we use this technology and still be grounded and make sure that we are wise in how we apply the technology? That is, for me, the crux. And there's another way to contextualize things, and I've got this slide. It's actually a slide from Versus that's really behind active inference and the free energy principles, where Professor Carl Friston is very much behind that. But they created this slide that talks about the new era. And this is just another way of looking at the smart tech era. So cybernetics, the fusion of human and machine, but you can also look at Web3, going all the way from Web 1, Web 2 to Web 3, where it's read, write, execute. And then also on a societal level, moving from the information society to the smart society. And then from an industrial perspective, in Industry 3.0 to Industry 4.0, where we're actually looking at cyber physical systems. So all of this is just ways to help contextualize and describe and label the kind of new era that we live in here. Now, in the smarter world, and what we will find in the future, right now we see generative AI and its tremendous impact. We see the text to video as well that's coming into play much stronger now. But what we will see in the future is more intelligent agents that in real time interacts with the environment, creating the smart cities, the smart grids, the smart homes, the smart cars, the smart devices, and doing things in real time. Whereas Whereas currently, if you look at even the LLMs and the GPT-4s and so forth, it's actually trained systems, and then it just engages in an inference way. We will get to intelligent agents that operate more like us as humans, where it's more real-time interaction. We've got sensor information coming in, and you actually act directly on it. So that's the interesting world that we're heading towards. So this is just the start that we're in. But very importantly, I think we also need to think about, and I did quite a bit in my book where I really thought about where are we going as a civilization, as a society. We see people struggling with sense making. We see the polarization, the meaning making, wealth gaps, job loss, all of these kind of things. And the question is, can we use technology? Can we also, as humans, come together and think holistically and in a wise manner to see how can we use the tools to our disposal to actually address these kind of problems? Because data abuse is a massive problem. Cybersecurity, bias, human agency. We don't want people to also to have this kind of dependence lock-in. That's the problem. So how can we shape this kind of Web3 or this new era, the smart technology era, to make sure that we don't have disorder or institutional decay, and we don't have all these kind of problems. So we do need visionary leadership, collective sense-making, wisdom, practical actions to help us, to help humanity and our civilization to move in the right direction, and really unlock the potential that there is. There's clearly incredible potential, but there's clearly also a lot of problems. Now, if you look at the impact, now I've got chapters in my book talking about the impact on society, and it's absolutely playing out right now. We see the possibilities now of productivity gains. It's tremendous. Just the way I'm, for instance, using ChatGPT, and I'm many other people, and the courses around how to actually improve your way of prompting, the possibilities also of text to video, all of these kind of things. You will just see people can accelerate anything that they do in the future. So, but not only that, it's also the way we search for information. The way we understand complex problems and understanding the brain itself. Privacy, transparency, ethics is incredibly important. We see a lot more voices, a lot more organizations and companies coming to the fore to talk about these things. Although I'm currently here in Dubai, in the UAE, we're doing quite a bit of work in Africa and also the developing world. And there, digital, if you think about just digital literacy, this could be our largest separator. And we need to be more proactive to really make sure that we don't have this situation. So before I get into a little bit more of what I talk about when I talk about democratizing AI, I think it's just important to look holistically at the benefits for society and social good, as opposed to the risks, concerns, and the challenges as well. So we know, I've already emphasized this on the previous slide, the new efficiencies and enhancing human capacities. We know that it can optimize and augment people's lives. We know from the application side as well, healthcare, education, the future of work, all of this will be impacted. There's not an industry that will not be impacted. But we know also there is the risks, the concerns. Human agency is a problem. Data abuse, job loss, dependence lock-in. And obviously, if you've got surveillance capitalism, that's problematic. If you've got, say, tech giants monitoring, controlling, manipulating people, if you've got state surveillance, that's also problematic. But I think one needs to have a balance. It's one thing to talk about those things, but one needs to be flexible around the collective versus the individual. So there's some things that you want to have surveillance. There are things that you want to do to provide these kind of services, but one needs to do this in a balanced way. So there are solutions to address these anticipated negative impacts, and it comes back to the basics here. We have to improve human collaboration globally, across borders and stakeholder groups. We need to look at our value-based systems. We need to develop policies to assure that development of AI will be directed to augment humans and the common good. That's absolutely critical. And thirdly, we have to prioritize people. In a previous panel discussion, we would be talking about human-centric. We talk about talent. We talk about harmonizing things. But we have to shift the priorities of economic, political, and education systems to empower individuals. And in the rest of the talk here, I'll be talking a little bit more about this. Now, PwC This is kind of the projection, and you can clearly see we are on this path of assisted intelligence, augmented intelligence, and autonomous intelligence. And even the market for autonomous intelligence will be even bigger than augmented intelligence. But it's important to look at that. But then we can also look at kind of a more human-centric future, where you can say, let's define human-centric traits that we start to value and make sure that we compensate according to that. So if you look at this kind of a graph here, and this is actually from Kai-Fu Lee, that initially put this together, I just annotated a little bit more. But if you've got, say, tasks, that's obviously where you see optimization, you see where compassion is not needed, you can see that AI and autonomous intelligence can play a big role here. When you move to the right, more to creativity and strategy, you see AI and human plus AI. But when you move above this axis and you more go to the human-centric side where compassion is needed, you can see that you can have assisted intelligence, augmented intelligence, also autonomous intelligence, but you see the warm embrace of humans utilizing AI. And when you move to this top right quadrant, you see more kind of creativity, human-centricness, compassion, and you can add more other dimensions as well, where you start valuing what humans are good at and what humans want to do. So in my book, I actually proposed a massive transformative purpose for humanity. And I think it's incredibly important that humanity's got goals and purposes that we agree on. And I just said here, it's about evolving a dynamic, empathic. We need to have empathy and kindness, understand one another, a prosperous, thriving, and self-optimizing civilization. It's almost like how our body works in cells. There's an element of self-optimization that benefits everyone in sustainable ways and in harmony with nature. And what I did was to, if we just look at, if I just go back one slide here, if I just look at this more holistically, then there's 4 things that I'm emphasizing. And this is where AI and Web3 is helping. Decentralized adaptive systems to benefit all. We have to make sure our systems, economic systems, political systems, finance systems, all of our systems are adaptive and flexible to serve the individual as well as the collective. So, in my opinion, it needs to be decentralized. We have to democratize smart tech to benefit all. We have to optimize quality of life to benefit all, not just optimize GDP. Think about quality of life and what it entails. And then obviously our place, sustainable, livable planet and exploring the universe. Those things are critical. So here I'm just emphasizing this again, decentralized adaptive systems to benefit all. And I'm specifically talking about agile economic, social, and governance systems. And we can have AI and Web3 play an incredible role. We want to respect individual freedom and privacy, but we also at the same time want to make sure that we protect humanity from potential harm. And then you've got to have a collective. You have got to have a collective view, holistic view on this. And you want to reward active participation and positive contributions to society and civilization. That's the kind of word we want to build in those incentives. We want to democratize smart tech to benefit all. So knowledge, science, and smart tech, we want to share the benefits with everyone, create opportunities in abundance, and dynamically solve problems. And again, ethics, wisdom, good values, human centricity is important. And then you can look at Maslow's motivational framework, the extended one. This is a nice basis if you think about optimizing quality of life. So you want to look at efficiency needs, and you want to look at growth needs, and you want to make sure that you address these things. For me, it's really about maximizing quality of life, character, sense-making, well-being, meaningful living. And we have to be careful if you think about even living in a virtual or augmented world. We need to think about, we are still physical beings. How much time do we want to spend in virtual reality, augmented reality versus the real world? So we need to find a nice balance around these kind of things. So these kind of qualities and traits are important. And when we look at our children, we want to give each child the opportunity to maximize quality of life, character building, sense-making, well-being, and meaningful living. And we need to always think about these things when we think about AI, Web3, smart tech, all of these things, because in the end, it comes back to these essentials. And then the fourth last part is just obviously a sustainable, livable planet. We want to make sure we do this. And obviously, we want to explore the universe as well. So what I did was to look at those 4 things and just summarize this here and then build 14 goals to support this particular massive transformative purpose and then show how this aligns with the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. It speaks to all 4 of these quadrants. So I'm not going to go through details here. I've got these papers, these newsletters. There's also my book for much more details around these kind of things. Now, in the last part, I just want to, last minute or two minutes, I just want to, and I've emphasized this at a previous MetaShapers event, but I really see incredible potential for in terms of AI and Web3. And Web3 is such an incredible building block to create trustless, transparent, and censorship-resistant applications and services. We know about the AI value gains, but what I really see the fusion of these two is we see the opportunity to create a decentralized world where intelligence meets trust. And that's the kind of world that we are obviously striving towards. And there's benefits for AI and Web3. I'm not going to go through all of this. It's quite obvious. There are challenges, but there's also ways to address these challenges around data privacy and bias and regulation. We have to have these kind of things. We have to protect civilization, society around these kind of things. And here's just finally a roadmap. I think I'm a big believer in open source as well. So you would see open source here as well. There are things that we need to do in terms of developing AI that's processing decentralized data. Collaboration is incredibly important across the board, across all stakeholders, and then ethics. This is so important. We have to ensure transparency, accountability, and privacy. I think I'm going to stop there. I just maybe want to just say the final thing is there are specific things that we can do to really empower individuals, families, groups. And this is where I think we need to really focus on personalized AI that's trustworthy, that's explainable, that's private, that's decentralized, that's human-centric, and that's user-controlled. So those 6 adjectives there, I think is incredibly important. And we need to, if we want to shape the smart technology era, we need to think about these kind of aims. And obviously we live in a capitalistic kind of world where we reward monetization, all of these kind of things. But even with these kind of personalized AI, with these kind of attributes, we can create that kind of world. And I just want to advocate for that. I'll make the slides also available. There's more details about what I mean by personalized AI and where we're going with intelligent agents, but I'll stop at this particular time. Thank you very much.
Jacques, the thanks go to you. And I think Sharad just nailed it by putting in the chat that Dr. Jacques Ludic knew AI before AI knew AI. And so thank you so very, very much. And you nailed the time again. That was wonderful too. So now actually I'm going to move into a lovely surprise 10 minutes, which we're going to have now with our MetaShaper colleague, Alistair Pernigo. Alistair, if you can come on screen and we'll let Jacques disappear beautifully. That would be wonderful. Are you there, Alistair?
Yes,
Alistair,
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes,
hello,
I
everyone.
can. Yeah, hi. Alistair, as you can probably see now from him on screen, is actually our youngest MetaShaper. And that's all I'm going to say to introduce you, Alistair. From the oldest to the youngest, go you. 10 minutes, please.
First of all, I would love to shout out thanks to Sharad, Susan, and all MetaShapers members that in these 2 days joined together in this fantastic global summit. And I hope that will be meaningful for everyone. I'm Alistair, and I came on this earth on 8 April 2002. Gen Z entrepreneur, co-founder and CTO at Oralink, aspiring VC and serial deep tech inventor. Honestly, since I was a child, my mission was to challenge the conventional and reimagine our very essence, to boost human flourishing in every aspect of life, from art, education, health, and wellness, and more. And I don't know how and why I'm arrived here in this precise moment, but I'm so excited to move forward on the waves of technological changing environment. And we would love to invite the global community to join us in this journey to redefine human-computer interaction role in our era. transforming it into a conduit for deep, meaningful connection. Together, let's step into a future where technology serves as a beacon, leading us to enriched experiences, discoveries, and unity. Currently, at Oralink, we are working full stack in developing a technology that, first of all, allows to capture, analyze, and transmit others' sense. When we are talking about sense, you will like to know better and to be awareness on how this part of our sensory habits is moving around. You have to figure out, first of all, in two directions. The first one is how these volatile molecules is flying around and how and why their characteristics makes them that specific fragrance pattern. The second one, as you can see here, is to understand how mammals and humans, insects, perceive these specific odors. And it's crazy because we bring these two perspectives together, and the intersection that's come out was a great discovery because, first of all, otherwise other senses, you find the core of perception in your brain. So, first of all, was important to have a neuromorphic device that mimics the habits and how our nose mechanism running to being able to capture precisely these fragrances. For example, in this case, we smell specific honey flavor with different bottles, and trying, thanks to our eye neural nectar, to combine together in a high dimensional space in order to understand its behaviors, how can affect the quality of this honey, and how the bees in their habitats are living. Because I don't know if you know, but smelling the bees, you can understand a lot of crazy information, like how, like socially, they are structuring themselves and how their wellness state is going on in this specific season. The second step was, okay, we know how these volatile organic compounds are flying. We know their characteristic, but we're not able to really bring it to make you smell in the metaverse, in a digital environment. So the point was, okay, there is some people that are delivering some bulky color or some stuff that you put in front of your face. And thanks to this liquid cartridge or cube with some wax inside, they spread out in your face these smells. And you say, okay, it's cool. But it's like an analogical way to trying to make it digital, and doesn't work for main two reasons. First of all, you don't have a real-time monitoring feedback on how the user is going to perceive that specific smell. In this case, orange, chocolate, and everything you can imagine. And the second one, that's you have thousands and millions of several characteristic smells, and it's quite really complex and not really sustainable to put all together in one single wearable color. So what we have game-changing on this side was say, okay, let's build a neural interface that is capable of analyzing and capturing how your olfactory bulbs, olfactory neurons is working. And when we are able to open a window in that specific brain area, we are able to manipulate these signals in order to make you perceive and neurotransmit the sense. In this specific use case, we bring some people and map their habits and behaviors of their olfactory neurons. And yeah, it's crazy because it's really pushing the boundaries of something that's even can be conceived to something that's will be accessible for everyone and really sustainable in order to bring it to the Apple Vision Pro or Meta Quest or as you can delve into like others use case. And yeah, that's pretty much. If I can, if there is any question, I would love to answer. Not yet. Yeah.
Thank you. That's that's amazing. Have you got more to show us, or are you're done now? Yes, you're pushing boundaries, as Sharad says. Are you good?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so
Any
much.
question?
Not
I would love to answer.
We're not going to take some questions now,
Okay.
Alistair, but thank you for being so ready to answer them. We really, really appreciate that. So let's just say ciao and grazie mille, and we will go straight into Reg Athwal. Reg, hello. Reg is in the room, and Reg is going to give us an amazing overview of just really what it takes to fuse the metaverse into the world of global family offices. And indeed, I think, Reg, you might be talking about your vision of some B2B community platforms that are especially for family offices with that wonderful, it's always great to have a target, isn't it? Wonderful sort of vision target of having 1,500 by 2033, which isn't too far away, and maybe that's even changed. But Reg, over to you. Please take it away.
Thank you so much, Susan. I hope I'm loud and clear, and audio is all good. I really want to speak today to entrepreneurs, because really that's the journey I've been on for 30 plus years, building over a dozen startups. And I want to share with you some hard truths about entrepreneurship in Web 3.0, spatial web, metaverse, AI, technology areas, and what it really takes to build a business that can start generating revenue and really scale and grow. So this spotlight session for 10, 15 minutes is really to focus on some of those learnings over the last couple of years with our company, but also share with you a couple of things on screen about what we're building and how we got here. So essentially the past to present and what some of the plans are for the future, and leave you with some learning outcomes here if you're an entrepreneur or you're currently right in the thick of building your metaverse related business. So in the chat, let us know if you're an entrepreneur. I'm speaking to all of you right now. So let me share with you briefly the journey. And I tried to summarize this with my notes of sort of 4 things I wanted to leave you with. And I've decided to use META as an acronym for today. So the first one for M in META, I made a note of market needs. So at the end of 2021, I was looking at Web 3.0 space. I'd invested previously in Web 2.0 and also built a company in the Web 1.0 space, working with other tech companies. So looking at this journey over 25 to 30 years, I thought, is this the next stage? Is this the evolution from where we've come to when it comes to social media and video platforms and all of these other areas in the Web 2 space? So as we were looking at this area before the hype, I got more and more excited. And to give you an idea of what the original idea was, which is not what it is today, it's evolved, and that's a lesson in its own right. What you think is the idea at the beginning as an entrepreneur is maybe not the idea that's going to work at the end of this process to launch. and have a product or a platform or a service that people will actually pay for. Because if a customer doesn't pay for your product, you don't have a business, right? It's just a great idea and a bunch of technical people all getting excited about technology, looking at LinkedIn posts all day long with what the world's telling us is the next best thing. But will a customer pay for it? So at the beginning, my link was to the family business and family office space. I'm also the chairman of a single family office, part of a fourth generation legacy, started from my grandfather in 1919. Grew up in the UK, and I've been in Dubai for 22 years. And we had all sorts of issues in our family business. And cutting a long story short, as we started fixing those things, I decided 22 years ago I wanted to help other family businesses. So that led to a business being built where we worked with 208 family business conglomerates, family offices across Africa, Asia, Middle East. And the reason I share this with you, because when I came across Web 3.0, I was thinking, is there a chance that a family business that's been around 100 years could have a present generation member, in this case, let's say Gen Z or Alpha, who could go into some type of platform and meet their great-great-great-great-great-grandfather or grandmother who shows up and says, let me show you how we started this business, and rewinds back 100 years earlier to show them how they started, mentors them, gives them words of encouragement, talks about the legacy, and inspires them to carry on this legacy for another 100 years. So this was the original crazy idea. And I thought, is this possible? Is it doable? And at the time, it was like, it's not doable, but it's coming, right? There's a chance to connect the dots here with technology, and hopefully this is coming. So I got really obsessed with this original idea, and then off we went. We started looking at what's possible. And cutting a long story short, I decided I wanted to invest, and we put up $1 million of capital that we wanted to start a company in this space from our family office. And the first thing we did, and this is to do with my M in Meta around market needs, is from my group company, we over 6 months spoke to 750 companies in the Middle East region. We're not talking 20 people in the focus group, right? We're talking everyday meetings, Zoom meetings, roundtable sessions, visiting companies, getting people into a boardroom, 750 companies over 6 months, back to back. And we were essentially speaking to CEOs, CTOs, CIOs of government entities, family business conglomerates, as well as associations and corporates, and asking them two things. Number one, what is their understanding of Web 3.0, virtual extended reality, Metaverse, spatial web, AI, and a whole bunch of other buzzwords? What's your understanding of these things? What are you thinking about when it comes to the future of enabling or using these technologies, number one? Number two, where are your biggest B2B pain points? I've always been a B2B person, not a B2C person. So for me, it was all business to business. Where are your B2B pain points? So what came back? What came back was, number one, 99.9% of all the people we spoke to had no clue of Web 3.0 and all the other areas surrounded around it, and what they were going to do and how they were going to use these applications and technologies. That was clear. So we thought, right, people have to be educated, a bit like what Sharad and the team are doing here with Metashapers. Great job, by the way, is we have to educate people first. Because if we don't educate them, they're not going to come on the journey. That was one. Number two, we then realized where the biggest B2B pain points were. And we eventually, after 6 months, got really clear that it was around community building, especially with government entities, large family business conglomerates with 30, 40, 50 companies in their portfolio. So within their ecosystem, they had these touch points of what they call their community, but the value addition wasn't there. We could see people were communicating with each other with acceleration, the connections weren't happening, there wasn't enough collaboration going on, and there was lots and lots of gaps. So the first thing I want to be clear on with the acronym META, with Metashapers today, is market needs. For those of you entrepreneurs, don't speak to just half a dozen people. Go out there and really speak to as many people as you can to get clear on where are the pain points, where is the opportunity, where is the real gap, and get ready for this. once you understand that and you say to people, if we were to create something and build something that could sort this problem out, would you pay for the system? Would you pay for the application? Would you pay for the technology? Would you pay for the service? And if you get enough yeses, the next test is, what would you pay? So we did this and we realized that, okay, people were saying yes if we built something that could solve these problems. And number two, they would pay anything between $6,000 to about $12,000 a year as a software as a service or a platform as a service technology solution. So we thought, okay, we understand now the yeses, we understand the price point, we know now we need to get to work, right? And as we got to work, the E in Meta I put in is experimental engineering. You can't get everything right day one, right? So from day one, we put our dream team together, all our engineers, developers, designers, put all these people in, and off we went, started building things. And, looking back now with hindsight, I would say if I was to do things better, I would have allowed the team to fail faster, right? To fail faster. Because where we were playing it safe and taking our time with things and what was taking us 3 months to build, it was better off saying to the team that you got 2 weeks and fail in every direction that you can. So really for me, experimental engineering is what I mean by that, is fail, get feedback, fail again, get feedback, and suddenly you start to get this focus of what needs to be built, how it's going to be built, how it's going to create the end result that you're looking for what clients have said, yes, this is what we need. And we got, we were all over the place. The first 6 months, 9 months, we were listening to so many different people. And every time a CTO of a company said, look, we need this, we got to work. Instead of questioning, well, why do they want that? Is that what we really want to build? Is that practical? Is it doable? Even if we do it, are we really going to get lots of people using that from day one? There were so many questions, so many mistakes that we made. So a couple of things there. One is experiment with your engineers, build out many different things, because what we realized is after one proof of concept and a second proof of concept and a third proof, by the time we got to like 6 proof of concepts, we realized we were getting closer to what this platform was really going to look like that we were going to build. But there's no way we would have got that clarity with the first proof of concept. So you've got to keep going, you've got to keep experimenting and don't lose faith, and also be very careful with who you listen to. And I realized that, looking back now, I should have been more careful with the people I was listening to, because sometimes with technology, if you're surrounded with a bunch of technologists or you're looking at what's happening on LinkedIn and around the world, there's so much hype. There's so many people giving you content, and this is the next thing, and you got to do this, and you see this next video, you see someone else who's now created a digital twin, you've got drone technology happening, and now the AI hype has come along. As an entrepreneur, you've got to stay very grounded and put all of that to one side and get practical with the people out there who are going to pay for your service and your platform and so on. So the next thing that we realized was the T in Meta for today is technology adoption. And if any of you studied TRIZ, which I think is a great model, where it talks about innovation in incremental steps. We don't go from iPhone 1 to iPhone 14, right? Or 15 or whatever. We go iPhone 1 and then iPhone 2. So with all the buzz around AI and all the great presentations we've seen today, we've got to be practical of how long this is really going to take to get to mass adoption. And people were telling us, you've got to go VR, you've got to go AR, you've got to have avatars, you've got to have, you've got to use Oculus, you've got to use the headsets. And we wasted a lot of money building things in that area, only to then build a proof of concept, show B2B users, and then feedback is, well, actually, we don't want to wear a headset. Oh, damn. Well, we just built this for a headset. No, we don't want to wear a headset. Okay, what do we do now then? And it's like back to the drawing board. So the realization is that things are going to take time. Let Apple and Meta platforms go to war over their headsets and AR and VR technology. Let someone else come up with glassware. Let someone else come up with contact lenses. Next, we'll be putting chips into our brains. Let people do that. But the reality is, in today's world, with hundreds of millions of businesses in the world, people are still creating websites. People are still creating video content. like today, we are still using Zoom, right? So there's an evolution that is there. It's going to take time, but we've got to be practical with the person who's going to end up using whatever we're building and will pay for it. It's not that it's just cool and it looks great. So anyway, I'm ranting a bit here now. I'm going off in different, I'm just the way I'm built, right? But I hope I'm resonating, right? I hope I'm connecting with you of things that you can grab from this presentation. So technology adoption, keep it real, keep it practical, go in baby steps. And that was the realization that we had. So when I show you this quick video before I wrap up, which is 3 minutes, and then I'm done with my session, you'll see some of the steps that we've been through and what we've built. And some of it you'll look and go, well, that's really simple, right? Yes, it is. It's like we've taken aspects of Zoom and MS Teams and Google Meets and built our own boardroom live and linked it with orbs that can come in and drop into the seats. Audio works, video works, chat works. And hopefully with MetaShapers will be in one of our environments in the near future, connected with a marketplace, connected with matchmaking, connected with an academy, a clubhouse, a virtual HQ, executive offices, and all of this is part of our B2B proposition, is what we call a family office zone. And it's on a virtual platform. Our own company is called Virtual Holdings on a virtual platform. And the family office zone is our first B2B private community we built on our own platform. So it's taken time. Our next one is the venture capital zone, which will come out in a couple of months. And then we're building a luxury asset zone with a NASDAQ company as a partnership. So the other learning here is once you get your foundation strong and the formula works, you launch. And people are saying yes. And here's the good news. After 4 weeks of launching our family office zone, we've become revenue generating with agreements going out that people are now signing with us. So, you know, that's 4 weeks, but it's 18 months of engineering and resilience and grit and determination and mistakes and a lot of money that's gone into this to get to that stage where eventually you launch. And so the last thing I had is application launch for Meta. So we've gone through, I hope you're getting all this in the chat, everybody, right? So market needs, I hope you got that. Experimental engineering, ET, tech adoption, incremental steps, and application launch. When you launch, you don't need to listen to every marketing guru out there. I spoke to lots of marketing experts. They were confusing me. You got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do that, above the line, on the line, side of the line, below the line, pay for this, SEO, Google Ads, videos. I'm like, oh my God, do we have to do all of this just to launch our product? And I then followed my own gut instinct, my own intuition. I thought, no, we've got to keep this simple. So decided that there'll be one feature we'll launch first, and we'll bring in trusted people that we know to start using what we've built, start to get some endorsements, testimonials, and ask them to refer us to other people that can experience what we're doing. In summary, it's worked because with our boardroom live experience in the family office zone on our virtual platform, we have done 7, almost now 8 live sessions. We've had, our boardroom is only 11 seats, and we've had over 80 participants of family offices, family business conglomerates go through our boardroom live experience. Here's the great news. Not one person out of the 80 participants has left any of the sessions. They've stayed right to the end. They love the immersive experience and the people that they meet. It's a community that we're building. And these are some of the largest family offices in the world that would not go to a webinar. They don't want to spend more time on Zoom and other things. They're looking for a different experience, but in a private area where they're connecting with their peer group. So we feel that we've got a model that we can scale by focusing on a very specific niche and vertical, bringing those people together in a private platform, which is a spatial web / metaverse type environment. And scale from there. So I hope that helps. Those are my 4 things that I wanted to share today in the time that I had. And what I'd like to do really, really quickly is I'll share with you briefly what we've been building. This is confidential, so this is for your own use to have a look at today, but I have to request that none of this is distributed anywhere else at this stage, just because of confidentiality.
Okay, Reg, on that note then, this video recording is going live. So Sharad, can we cut this bit out or shall we not see it? Sharad, can you pop in and guide us?
I can edit it out later.
Yeah, that's fine. So I'm happy that Sharad's already spoken to me about this. Fine. So look, I'll play this a couple of minutes. I'll stop and wrap up, Susan. Susan, is that okay? So here you go. This is just give you an idea. So our company's called Virtual. It's a spin on the word virtual with our own brand identity here. And what you'll see here is just different aspects of what we're building. So it's a community platform. That's essentially what it is. It's private. It's for B2B communities. This is like an entry point of our family office zone. We decided not to go with avatars everywhere. We're using our own identity with orbs, our green orbs that come into the area. So you see in the atrium lobby, this is our marketplace. We're building virtual HQs and executive offices for our family office clients. We're then getting to matchmaking that launches shortly. So we end up connecting a whole bunch of family office chairmen and partners. And then you've got our boardroom live experience where orbs drop in with video, audio, document management, presentations, and we've got AI cobot personal assistant going live in 2 weeks' time in the room. So we're excited about where that's going to go. And that's what Sharad and Rohit and Dr. Jacques and many other experts have been talking about, is this beautiful integration when you bring AI into spatial web and metaverse environments, takes everything to a completely different level. So we've gone from there to the boardroom, to matchmaking, to virtual HQ. This is a digital twin of a government entity in the UAE, in Dubai. So we looked at building a proof of concept there, taking a digital twin, enabling more of the community to get the information that they need and connect with people. All the way through to an executive office with our own encryption there, cyber technology we've used. So eventually our family office clients have their own private space and have portfolio management, asset management dashboards where all of their next gen and people from around the world can hang out. Then we've got our clubhouse that will go live later in the year. We can have 50 to 100 people in a room and also run hybrid events. And again, only for our community, and we'll bring in people externally. This is another proof of concept with a government entity, again in Dubai, looking at how some of their hybrid events could work, and another use case here that you can see here. So again, everything done through orbs, and eventually orbs will connect with each other with side chats, profiles will come up, and we decided that this was the best way to keep things practical and simple for now as people were dropping in. And finally, we've got our academy, which will be a 500 to 1,000 seater conference room. We've spoken to a couple of very large companies who be looking to use this for 1 or 2 hours for their large events, not only virtual, but link it with hybrid as well. And we'll link it with our family office, family business community. So documents could be used by anyone in the room with their own view. Everyone has their own view. This is another one that we built as an academy, another digital twin of a real academy in DIFC, a World Government Summit, digital twin of one of their real rooms so we can bring orbs in and connect and communicate. And then finally, as we get to the end here, you'll also see our library, where we're putting more money into this right now, where it's enabled with Sheila, our cobot personal assistant, and it's a Gen AI library. So you talk to Sheila, you ask her what you need, what you're looking for, she'll go through the archive and put it together for you. So to build out this year as other B2B communities on our platform. So I hope that helps. I am done speaking. Hopefully you've got some value from what I've said. And Susan, back to you.
Reg, thank you so much. That was really great value, I think. And we all particularly overjoyed to have a new acronym for Meta, and also overjoyed to know that a quantum leap, those small significant steps are all we need to take to, let's say, building our magnificence. So thanks, Reg. Thanks for all you've done.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming here to share it and for being so good on time. Sharad, I'm now going to invite you into the room, and I will let you take over your introductions too, because you've got a wonderful guest with Nova Lorraine from the House of Nova, another award-winning futurist. Sharad, are you there with Nova?
Yes, I'm here.
Over and out.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah, amazing presentations. Thank you, Reg, for those insights. I don't know about you guys, but I think my brain is already getting fried with too much information, but loving it all the same. I'm going to have a conversation with a good friend, Nova Lorraine, who I've known for slightly over 2 years. We've had various interactions. I was fortunate to meet her at NFT London. And just a few months back, she was in Dubai. And so Nova, What's new with you? I know you were talking about AI and launching new business in the fashion industry. So go ahead, introduce yourself and talk to us about your latest project. Over to you.
Yeah, pleasure to be here at the MetaShapers Global Summit. Oh gosh, what is new with me? But let me start. For those that don't know me, I'm an award-winning futurist and fashion designer. I speak internationally around the future of fill in the blank, so creativity, fashion, future of work, and how emerging technology impacts a variety of industries. I'm also a builder and creator in the space. I use emerging technology to bring fashion and art to life and to distribute it to my communities as well. Working on a second book. First book is Unleash Your Supernova. The second book is The Jockey on the Horse, and it's about the future of creativity, the future of work, and how do we stay ahead in the age of AI? This is why we are here, right? This is what we're going to be talking about today. One of the products I'm super excited about, as you mentioned, the House of Nova, and it's the culmination of what I've done in the past, starting my roots in psychology. I'm a psychologist that pivoted to fashion and now technology. And so bringing together my love of couture with well-being and emerging technology to tell more impactful stories. And yeah, that's my snippet of an intro.
Yeah, thanks, Noah. So my first question to you is, technology is moving at the speed of thought, right? You blink and you miss it. So how does one stay up to speed and maintain one's sanity?
Those 2 points are perfect. So I'm going to break them apart. I'm going to use my personal journey as a way for our audience to relate. And I pivoted into many new industries, and I could have used the perception of not knowing as a great reason for fear paralysis, is what I call it, not stepping in, because where do you start? Who do you talk to? What do you listen to? What do you read? But I just first made the choice, like, this is what I want to do. This is the area that I want to go into. And I'm a book nerd. I love books. I collect books. I read tons of books each week. And so I start with books, and now it's mainly audiobooks, but I start with books, and then I follow those thought leaders that I feel are consistent and are providing value. And they typically share resources that I can use as breadcrumbs, and I'll follow the trail. But, as I mentioned, I went from psychology to fashion, and that journey into fashion, part of that reason of me going into fashion is I wanted to help people. I wanted to help initially women feel empowered from the inside out. And then it was creatives and creative entrepreneurs continue to discover and achieve their dreams. So that led me to launching a digital magazine called RAIN, RAINE magazine, which focuses on the future of fashion, culture, and technology. And because it's futurism that we covered, it was only natural that I would come across Bitcoin. And when I did a story on Bitcoin, this was 2013. And initially, as I was doing my research and taking in information, I was like, what is this? And then I became more fascinated. And I think, again, that's where it starts, is the curiosity, the decision to move forward, and then following through with researching, and again, I mentioned many ways that you can do that research. And when I did do the research, I realized that this was technology, blockchain technology, was at the very beginning of this new paradigm shift that we see ourselves in right now. And so Bitcoin led me to Ethereum, which led me to many other cryptocurrencies and the field of decentralization. And then that journey took me full time into Web3, tapping into NFTs, building immersive 3D environments, and now very much involved in augmented reality and, of course, AI, artificial intelligence, more specifically generative AI. And so I would say that's one way of staying ahead, is being okay with not knowing, making that decision to take that first step, and understanding along the way you're going to hit challenges. You're going to not know what you're reading. The vocabulary is going to be new. You may try something and you may fail. You may fail horribly, but all you're doing is learning what doesn't work and pushing your boundaries in terms of thinking outside the box. So I think that's one way of staying ahead, realizing that we are in a shift. You're here because you've accepted that step, right? The next thing is find your favorite thought leaders and resources to follow and engage with. So if you don't know, ask those thought leaders, DM them, email them, connect with them, and say, what books are you reading? What podcasts are you reading? Who do you suggest I connect with and follow? And then in terms of sanity, and of course, my journey starting in psychology, I'm very passionate about well-being and mental health. And there's going to be a lot of disruption. We're seeing it already. We're seeing a shift in job roles and titles and functionalities and tasks. Some of us are forced to upskill, some of us are forced to shift careers. And that's going to impact your self-esteem, your sense of self, your financial security, your household potentially in terms of these technologies coming into your home. And so I say also, not just in technology in terms of looking for your resources and individuals to follow, individuals and books and podcasts that support personal growth, support mental health and well-being are also things that I truly encourage you tapping into. Joining communities and networks that are supporting each other as we go through this journey of shift. Because one, you may find new career opportunities. You're going to find friends that are going through the same thing. You're going to find people to lean on, ears that will listen. And so I think support is a really, really big part of protecting our sanity. We're not going to know everything that's coming. We're not going to be fully prepared for changes and shifts and disruptions. But if we're engaged in a community, it could be as small as 2 or 3 individuals. But if we're engaged in a community that's supporting each other, that's choosing to take this journey together, we're going to more quickly adapt to those disruptions, to those challenges and obstacles for the betterment of our mental health and well-being.
Yeah, thanks, Nova. There's lots to unpack there. But the biggest takeaway for me here is that it's okay not to know stuff. Because clearly, I don't know a single person on this planet who can take care of everything that's coming at us tech-wise. It's almost like a tsunami, right? Sora is launched. It's insane. AI pin is shipping. It's crazy. Elon Musk is going to put a chip in our brain. I'm not going to allow him to do that, right? So we need to make our own call in terms of how we accept technology. And I think Alvin Toffler, it was, who said it almost 50 years back, when he said, you have to learn, unlearn, and relearn. I think this holds true 50 years later in today's context, where when I met you, Nova, we were talking about Metaverse. And it was on such a high, there were 50,000 articles a month. We were doing 15 back-to-back meetings on Zoom. Our brains were going nuts, right? And then what happened? 6 months later, it just died down. AI came and sucked the oxygen out of all those conversations. So what I'm trying to get at is that technology will keep moving and will keep changing. There will be hype cycles, right? It is important for us, and actually Reg said it best in the previous session, that we are not to get overawed by new technologies. We need to stay grounded. We need to be focused on what we are doing. And I think, Nova, you can talk a little about what went wrong with the Metaverse's initial launch, because I think it was lost in definition, it was lost in translation, it was too gimmicky, and there was too much jargon being bandied around. What's your take on where we are with this whole big thing called the Metaverse?
I love that question. And it's funny you mentioned that quote. As I'm editing the book, that was that was where I left off. Those that are going to survive have to be willing to learn, relearn, and unlearn, relearn, learn. In terms of the metaverse, I think a big problem was you had a lot of individuals that were in it not so much for the end game, they were in it for the money grab. And it grew through technologists and engineers and developers and coders, very tech heavy individuals, which is great, but we can't, build a new city in a silo. You can't build a city with just carpenters. You need the electricians, you need the shop owners, and you need the people. And so I think a lot of the builders forgot about the people and all the other individuals they needed to co-create with. And when you're using new vocabulary and you're not educating, you're leaving people out. And so there was this exclusivity. I launched an NFT collection to my community that was both Web3 and Web2. And even the Web3ers were having a challenge minting NFTs. And so, I mean, what was the initial problem? We started with an acronym that most people couldn't even understand, right? And then we're throwing in new vocabulary and we're throwing in new tasks that you have to learn for the first time. So all three things compounded discouraged a lot of individuals. And there were a lot of people excited and knocking on the door. They wanted to get into the party. They wanted to jam with everyone, but they didn't know the code in. And I feel that the time that it took and the money that it took and the resource that it took to bring a lot of these ideas to life also slowed things down. And then you had a new party next door called AI. And the door was wide open and the tasks were understandable and the user experience was super simple. And so you have this mass adoption of 100 million people within days, 90 days, and 60 to 90 days, 100 million. And not that the first house or the first city called the Metaverse wasn't being built with passion and good intention, because there were a lot of individuals like yourself and myself, those people here, that saw the opportunity for equality, inclusivity, financial sustainability, new, infinite possibilities as it relates to creatives and artists and all of these things. And I think all of those things are still possible. But what's exciting now, with the addition of artificial intelligence, we can bring these environments to life more. We can increase the user experience. We can aggregate and curate new communities more quickly. And we've learned as a collective that we have to speak the same language as those that want to come into the party. And so the vocabulary has changed over the years. I remember we were sitting at the same conferences over a year and a half ago, and the big topic was we need to change the language. We need to simplify the vocabulary. And so individuals feel that they're part of this journey too. So I don't think the metaverse has gone anywhere. We just seen the shift in language. We are seeing how things are being built more quickly through artificial intelligence and generative AI. We're seeing projects that are here for, for good intentions, that have the long game in mind, stick around and stay. This is this community that you've built, and so grateful to see how it's grown so much over the course of just a short amount of time. And I think that's where we are with the metaverse. I think we're just changing language. We're seeing hardware come into the market like Apple Vision Pro, Meta's improving, and there's so many more that's also helping more and more people experience what this new Web3, this new version of the internet is all about.
Yes, I have to ask you one more question about your podcast, because I remember coming on it a few months back, and then my social media was exploding. You obviously have a very large audience that you reach out to. Talk to us about Pink Kangaroo.
Thank you so much for sharing, for allowing me to share. So Pink Kangaroo is a transformational podcast network, and we talk about content such as innovation, transformation, well-being, and emerging technology, of course. And that includes fashion as well. So it's pinkkangaroo.com, kangaroo with the U. My newest podcast is AI for Creatives. And, Sharad was on our Crypto for Creatives. And what we did is we brought on individuals that are building in the space, passionately impacting communities around them, and sharing what is all of this that we are creating and building in terms of our digital era that we're in. And AI for Creatives is built with the same intention and launched with the same intention to onboard individuals into this space in a way where we are intersecting art, humanity, and technology. We want to build tech for good. That's what we want to do. We want to create impact, positive impact. And AI for Creatives, the newest show on Pink Kangaroo Podcast Network, is doing that. And we're sharing every week new information, new tools, new insights, and the things we need to be cautious about and pay attention to as it relates to AI and creativity.
Finally, Nova, 5 years hence, where do you see yourself?
Oh, well, you know what? I hope I'm dressing people for the Space Gala. And when they're asking, what are you wearing? They're saying Nova Lorraine. Okay, so that's one thing. I look forward to, releasing more and more books into the space. I am a storyteller. My first 2 books are nonfiction, but I also have some fictional books in the works. So if anyone has watched the movie Ready Player One, think sci-fi, think outside the box. So I'm really interested in bringing more books to life, also bringing my couture to more spaces virtually, and also showcasing them on the runway.
And Nova, before I let you go, you also did a stint with NASA. Tell us what that was all about.
Yeah, so I was a participant in the NASA Tech to Transfer Accelerator Program. And they did that in partnership with Virginia Tech Science and Research Park. And that's where the House of Nova came to life, where I conceptualized bringing together couture and emerging technology in order to make impact through storytelling. So I take fashion in the most traditional sense, handmade, luxury fashion, and bring it to life in various digital mediums. And that includes augmented reality filters, 3D models, as well as generative AI concepts and designs. And then that eventually ends up on the runway. And so the House of Nova was born during that NASA Accelerator program. And most recently, I had one of my fashion designs launched to the moon as part of a program through Bitmozzle and Space Blue, where they're preserving artworks around the world. And I'm one of 222 artists that was selected, one of the SDG ambassadors representing 3 SDGs, including bringing more women into technology. And my fashion design has been sent to the moon, all in digital form. And the rocket is scheduled to launch, fingers crossed, scheduled to launch tomorrow evening. And it would be official that I'll have one of my fashion pieces on the moon. So that's my newest update.
Well done, Nova. We are running out of time now, but really it's been amazing talking to you. You are such a high achiever. You're a multitasker. I get a sense that you already have a chip implanted in your brain. That's the only way you could achieve so much in such little time.
And I will not be the one lining up for that.
All right. Cool. See you on the other side, and I'll throw it back to Susan to take this forward. It's been a pleasure, Nova.
Always a pleasure, Sharad. Thank you, and MetaShaper community.
Thank you both very, very much. That was really insightful. And over and above that, Sharad, you even saved time. So thank you so very much. We are now going into our second panel. And that panel is actually looking at actualizing ownership and monetization. And it's led by someone who I really like very, very much and admire, a bit like you, Nova Lorraine, too. I mean, wonderful women who I've never met, either of you, in real life, but really like you both very much. But Alison, let's focus on you. I mean, you always show up. You're so courageous. You're always present, and not, shown by the fact that you founded or co-founded MetaCampus. Bringing tech to the workplace and really wanting to bridge Web3 with your core area of passion, which is the public sector, and those of us out there on the street. And today you're actually going to be talking about ownership and how we can monetize to serve us all. And you've got 4 wonderful panelists that I'll ask you to introduce. I'm seeing John Scott in the room. Are you coming on? I'll leave you guys.
He's just hanging out with us. There we go. He's gone now.
Moral support.
He's just hanging out in the room with us. So there we go. Thank you very much, Susan. Really lovely to be here with you again today. So massive welcome everyone to our session. And I think even what Suzanne just said around my passion is around how we use the new ecosystem of Web3, the whole of it, to really improve lives, and particularly within the public sector. And I think that there is so much that the public sector and professionals can learn from today, what they've heard. And I know we're going to learn from the three guys in the room with us today about how this new ecosystem, which is creating a transformative shift into how individuals engage with the web, and therefore their whole actualization through themselves with the web, ownership and monetization. So three massive words, which I would sum up as the whole of the new web ecosystem. But what we're going to do, we're going to try to give that justice, and we have just a minute. So on that basis, rather than me try to introduce these three great guys and to pick out bits, I actually have given them the challenge of how to introduce themselves. And actually, because we're one panel member down, they've got a few more seconds. So, but how to introduce themselves in 30 seconds. And really what I'm inviting them to do is to tell us who they are, what they do, even what's their passion in the Web3 ecosystem, and a fun fact about themselves in this environment, if that's okay. And I'm going to start with Jimmy, and then Jimmy will pass it over to the next player, and then they'll pass it over. And then when you've done, pass it back to myself. So over to you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Alison. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. I'm not sure where everyone's dialing in from, but glad to be at the MetaShapers Global Summit. My name is Jimmy Dowdu. I'm the founder and CEO of Vault Hill, where we're starting to look into immersive AI. How do we use more of avatars plugged to your LLMs, ChatGPTs, and the likes to look at customer service within the telecommunications sector, so more B2B focused now. Recently started a PhD in AI, not because I want to, but I want to keep on having a student's card to get 10% off, various outlet stores. And fun fact, I used to make custom velvet slippers. I actually still do, but not on a grand scheme. But slippers that you could put your face and your names on. And yeah, glad to be here. I'll hand over to Sunil.
But before you say that, I have to say, I know Nova would love your slippers. There we go. I think you should be talking with her about your slippers, and they're saying they're wearing Nova and Jimmy. Okay. So anyway, sorry about that.
Not at all, not at all. Hi, I'm Sunil Arora, co-founder Trace Network Labs. Shifted to the Web3 space almost 4 years back. I'm a technology advisor to the fashion industry globally in about 50 plus countries. I was a professor with the National Institute of Fashion Technology in India, then FIT New York, and then with London Fashion. So not so very funny and attractive the way Alison wanted me to, but yes, it's interesting because I'm working with almost like 50 different countries and with almost like 1,000 plus organizations globally at different hubs of the industry. So that has made the things very, very interesting, traveling to different places, interacting with the interesting people and solving their issues through technology. So Web3 has been the latest one. Back to you, Alison.
Okay, well, I'm going to send it straight down because you're down on my screen to Alistair. So welcome, Alistair. Do you want to have a go, introduce yourself, and any fun fact as well? I always like fun facts.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alistair. I was speaking an hour ago about our link because I'm co-founder CTO and Gen Z entrepreneur. I came on this sort on 8 April 2002. Yeah.
And everyone was like in their 30 seconds. Oh my God, it's given me time to even talk, which is really great. So thank you for that. And I actually want to come back to Jimmy's point about he's doing his PhD for AI. I thought you were going to say, so you're always staying ahead of the times, but I understand now. You just want the student discounts all the way. Okay. So, okay, on that. So what we're going to do for you all today is, because these three guys have got so much knowledge, what we're going to do is we're going to go around the room with, hopefully we're going to get to a couple of questions for each panel member if we have that time. And I am going to kick us off with Jimmy. So, and you kicked us straight off nicely with AI, all the buzzes. We've just heard about that as well. And with the new launch, I know Sharad mentioned Sora and the amazing abilities of that. I can't even comprehend. But thinking about that, I'm just wondering about the customer focus there, really, with all of this new evolving tech. And I'm wondering, can you talk us a bit about what you're doing and how Vault Hill is using that in Hilda as part of its wider ecosystem to help people in the actual ownership of themselves?
No, absolutely. I think when we talk about technology, oftentimes it can be scary. Especially, just on a panel with Sharad and Nova talking about, metaverse and how AI sucked the life out of that and all of that good stuff. And, it's moving at a fast pace that even all of us can't keep up. Like, this community is amazing and it's great to be part of this. Interestingly, what we're building at Vault Hill, we started off with the metaverse space as well. We still do a little bit of customization for some businesses, but the product side of things from a business to customer B2C perspective, that we were building for the last 2.5 years, we've had to put that on hold towards the tail part of last year because, again, the demand wasn't there, the excitement, the revenue wasn't there, and we started looking at how we still incorporate immersive technology but now bring it into AI. Now, there's been a lot of chatbots out there even before ChatGPT, but what we kind of found out was it wasn't there wasn't so much value creation, right? And we said, okay, hey, we know customer service is a pain for everyone. I love Nike shoes and I customize most of my Nike shoes if you see me at physical events. And it takes roughly about 3 to 4 weeks to get to me after I customize it. And if they don't come within that time frame, I pick up the phone and I call Nike. And I'm either on wait for about 5 to 10 minutes or 10 to 15 minutes. And all I wanted to just find out was where my order was and, what's taking it long, blah, blah, blah. Now, what we're building at Vault Hill is technically the answer to reducing 5 to 10 minutes to 30 seconds to a minute with Hilda. So Hilda is a customized version as an avatar. So imagine Nike had a persona called Phoebe, as a customer service agent, right? So Phoebe is an avatar. You click on Phoebe and Phoebe pops out to you to say, "Hi, Jimmy, how are you doing today? What can I do for you? And how can I help you?" And I go, "Hey, I'm waiting for my shoes. I haven't gotten them." And Phoebe goes, "Oh, Jimmy, what's your order number?" I give it to Phoebe, and within seconds, Phoebe is like, "Oh, your shoes are actually coming in from China. There's a custom charge of 100 dirhams to be paid. Have that ready. It's gonna land in 3 days' time." Simple, done. That was all I needed, right? Now I've cut in the wait time. From a customer perspective, I've increased customer engagement for Nike. From Nike's perspective, I've reduced operational cost. And the beauty about this is with Phoebe, after she sorted out my questions, right, she could go, "Hey, Jimmy, by the way, those shoes you ordered in these fancy colors, here are another type of colors you might want." And I'm like, "Oh, I love my Nike shoes. Let me click on it." I click on it, and then that makes me purchase another pair. And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Nike has created a new channel of sales, all from an immersive chatbot technology. Now, if we flip the script from a Web3 perspective and ownership, right? How does that now come in? Now, you might debate, depending on who you're talking to, around bringing friction into the user experience, from a chatbot perspective and a non-Web3 user perspective. And what we're trying to do is look at how we incorporate wallets into this customer service chatbot, whereby I talk to Phoebe, and as a result of that, I have points, or I earn points based on my conversation that sits in my wallet. Now, those points could be tokenized by Nike to say, "Hey, for every query you get this points, and those points can act as discounts to your orders moving forward." that is what we're starting to look at, from a Web3 and ownership space perspective. I'll pause there from now. I know our listeners looking at me for time, but that is what we're building at Voltel.
What I was actually thinking was you should sell this to local authorities, yeah, and to the NHS, yeah. They're the people, and I'm just going to
HMRC.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to give that plug there and that's across the world. Yeah, I'm talking about from the UK, we're here. But actually, if you could cut those waiting times, but then allow people, it's like they get those tokens and that has ownership, and then they can start to contribute to the local decision making through having those tokens. It's a bit like in the UK, you go to a shop and if you spend a certain amount, you get a token and you can put it in a charity box. It's the same kind of thing, isn't it?
I like that. Look at that. Brainstorming at an event.
Exactly. So let's talk about that. So, okay. So from there, what you've talked a lot about is that shift, and you've done some of that around from the original web, if we call it that, everything we usually know, to this Web3. So I am going to jump over to Sunny and ask about, so on that, can you describe a bit more and give an example around how the Web3 differs from traditional web in terms of the actualization and ownership? And what's the fundamental shifts that you're seeing coming that haven't even arrived yet?
Sure. Web3 is a term that refers to the decentralized peer-to-peer and open source web applications that use blockchain technology and smart contracts. Web3 offers new possibilities for content creators and consumers to interact and exchange values without intermediaries or censorship. While the Web1 space was a read-only, as you call it, initially there was only Web1, the internet as we know and love. That is the physical infrastructure of wires and servers that lets computers and the people in front of them talk to each other. That was the read-only or Web1 space. Then in the early 2000s, the Web2 space, which is a read-write space, things started to change. The internet was becoming more interactive. It was an era of user-generated content or the read-write web. Social media was a key feature of Web2. Facebook and Twitter came to the forefront, defined the experience of being online. YouTube, Wikipedia, Google's, along with the ability to comment on the content, expanded our ability to watch, learn, search, communicate. That Web2 also birthed the advertising-driven revenue model. While users could create content, they did not own it or benefit from its monetization. So a key feature of this area is centralization. Economies of scale and network effects led to clear winners. Further, Web2 created new ways for regular people to make money, such as through the sharing economy and the alluring job of being an influencer. However, as the Web2 grew, it left people wondering what's next and where there is a better future out there, thus paving the way for Web3. So Web3, as we all call it, read, write, and own space. The advocates of this newest technologies are pitching it as a roots deep update that will correct the problems and perverse incentives of Web2. Currently, Web3 is work in progress and isn't exactly defined yet completely. It relies on the fact that it will be decentralized rather than controlled by governments and corporations. At its core, Web3 uses blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and NFTs to give power back to the users in the form of ownership. So the core principles of Web3 are permissionless, decentralized, native payments, and trustless. So these are the core principles. Back to you, Alison.
Thank you. So with that, I want to move on to the whole idea around our digital identity, because what you're talking about is people having more data into the system. So I'm going to jump over to Alistair here and invite Alistair to talk to us a bit about this really controversial issue, I'm going to say, about digital, our data, and it's being more and more digitalized, and how do you think that that's playing out in relation to ownership of our data and then as it's more and more in the Web3, and what do you think again is coming down the road?
Yeah. First of all, I would love to shed the light on a new forms of biological and sensory data that for sure will come in this tumult of data, and the problems increasing as complexity, and in a matter of, okay, how can we protect the user? How can we be sure that no one will take advantage on our personal information? When I mention biological and sensory data, I mean new characteristics, physiological, emotional states that's reflecting intimate aspects such health and lifestyle habits. And this is coming to be part of some data that we already know. So instead of what you like or dislike or how you comment, the people you interact, it's coming a totally new essence of this data. And imagine an app that customizes content not just based on this interaction, but also on your emotional reaction measured by neural cognitive indicators. So this evolution heightens the need for data protection protocols and enhance in the same way their economic potential, because more is sensitive the data that you are dealing, more higher the value you can sell it. So the cryptography, blockchain, and other tools emerge as crucial technologies tool to safeguard ourselves and our community, to take ethics management. But to do that, it's important developing a collaborative framework among industry, academia, and regulatory bodies that not stay on the business model laws to protect individual in this cyberspace. And yeah, I don't know if I answered exactly at the question.
Yeah,
but,
no,
yeah.
that's really brilliant. Thank you. And I'm going to move us on just because I want everyone to have a kind of second go at sharing some thoughts, really, because this is about actually people hearing from yourselves and knowing then, okay, I need to follow up or I want to hear more. So I am going to jump back to Jimmy, and I'm going to ask him to talk about what we've heard so far, and then you've talked about Hilda, and I'm just wondering in which way does the Vault Hill utilize Hilda to drive monetization within the Web3 framework?
Thanks, Alison. We're still figuring that out, to be honest. I'm not going to say we have it all sorted. It's still a work in progress. On our community on Telegram recently, we're talking about setting up a small working group with our community to start to look at the utilities of tokenization, Web3 framework, and all of that. Because if we look at 60 to 70% of projects that have a token or have an NFT, outside of your usual uses such as staking or membership or access, there isn't a lot of benefits, right? Now we're looking at Hilda within customer service, within industries, within enterprise. We want to start looking at how we tap into the millions of customers of those enterprise clients. So one of the telcos we're working with, one of their markets has 100 million users. So again, incorporating a Web3 framework, we're reviewing use cases to ensure that we don't bring in friction. We make it as easy and seamless as possible. However, there's still question mark around the technology. And for us, we're looking at, okay, how do we incentivize behavior? But outside of behavior, how do we also incentivize folks to use the technology to solve an actual problem that they have? So those are still part of the work in progress we're looking at. But currently, from a monetization perspective, earlier on we talked about, you know, making a support query or review and earning tokens. There's implementation cost. The things like using tokens to reduce your subscription. Part of Hilda is going to be, Hilda's customizable. So she's been customized for a company in a government establishment in Nigeria called Nigecomstat as Aisha. She's been customized for a telco in Africa called Ajoke, which is a female local name. So again, we're bringing all of those flexibilities to the core from a Web3 perspective as well. And also looking at things like premium AI services, right? You know, if you have this tier and you pay with, you know, VHC tokens, Voltil City tokens, you get access to these type of features and all of that good stuff. But it's very important, you know, I need to say this, that the friction point of, you know, non-Web3 users and Web2 holders, users, is something that is really, really close to us to solve. We don't want to introduce more Web3 capabilities and frameworks and get people deterred from using the service, because, you know, when you're talking enterprise and not B2C, you know, they're quite quick to say, hey, my customers are complaining, we don't need this anymore, you know. So again, it's how we roll it out in a systematic way that makes it very, very interesting for the users to be part of it. And because we also come from a metaverse background, we're looking at how we gamify the experience as well, so it's more exciting and more intuitive for folks.
Now I am calling
I love
time.
this.
So no, really great stuff, and people will know where to reach out to you. But because you kind of had that bit of a okay, and we've got 1 minute left because we are late now, we are going to be, I'm going to ask Alistair and Sonny to give one of their kind of asks. If they're saying to people, where to from now, or what should people do? You have like 20 seconds each, guys, to say, what is it that you would advise people to do in this whole concept of ownership, tokenization, and monetization?
Very well. I go first. To embark on the Web3 journey, businesses must understand its principles, explore partnership opportunities, and experiment with decentralized technologies. By embracing Web3, companies can position themselves at the forefront of innovation, drive positive change, and leading the way to a decentralized and user-centric digital landscape. The potential of Web3 is vast, and those who embrace it today will shape the internet of tomorrow. I'll close with that and come back to you.
Okay, and with that, I'm going to hand over to Alistair, who I'm going to say is the future, as he's the youngest in the room and will be here long past all of us. So over to you.
Yeah, the question is like, how do you suggest to dealing with actualization and monetization of
Or
data?
just one tip that you would say to people if you were in the bar talking to them, what would you say?
Okay. Yeah, first of all, be really sure to how do you use your phone, your internet connection, and what do you share online? Because something that you can do easily without too much thinking can be much more dramatic. And be consciousness and awareness on what's going on.
Perfect.
And regarding the tools that you are using. So
perfect. Okay, and on that note, I am going to thank Sonny, Alistair, and Jimmy for being here, sharing their thoughts. If anyone wants to reach out to them, please do hear more of what they've said or their thoughts are. And on that, I'd like to thank MetaShapers for having us today and wishing everyone a great evening, afternoon, and morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you all. Well done. That was awesome. I think someone said I need a day to process, so I think I need a week. That was really, really super. And what's very useful now, of course, is that we're going to go into the world of law and legal and copyright and framework. I mean, what a great way to end such an exciting day, really. Not bringing us down to earth, Buki, but just bringing us into real reality. And to help us do that, we have Buki Ugansakin. I hope I've said it correctly, Buki. And Buki is a tech lawyer, really working in that emerging tech space with a real embrace of everything tokenization, artificial intelligence, and of course cybersecurity and data privacy. Buki, over to you.
Thank you so much, Susan. I hope everyone can hear me okay.
Yes, we can, beautifully.
Awesome. Okay, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're logging in from. I would like to say a very big thank you to Sharad, Susan, the entire team, and all the meta shapers for logging in today. I am a technology lawyer based in Lagos, and I also am a Web3 legal consultant. So I do a lot of road mapping and helping organizations with advisory with regards the legalese that goes into the Web3 world. So I'm going to go right away into the presentation because I have only a very short time. So the topic today is the legal world, Web3 and AI, and then we're going to be looking at copyright and the framework of law. Okay. So by introduction, we're just going to be looking at the intertwined worlds that we have. We have Web3 on one hand, and we have the introduction of AI on another hand. We're going to be looking at the pace of technological innovation, delve into the paradigm shifts currently ongoing, and then look at the legal landscape that each and every one of us need to be considering for our organizations and our projects, and then try to, reimagine the current frameworks that we have. So the first thing is the paradigm shift. We all know that the core principles of Web3 is decentralized, decentralization, immutability. There's more transparency in the Web3 space. And then with the introduction of AI, we have more creative expression. There's more distribution of information. People are owning assets now. Assets are being transformed. We're hearing things like digital assets, where you have assets that are both have features of both being digitally operational and available, and then the physical aspect as well. We're seeing also the transformation of the AI space, where as at last year, a lot of the AI videos were more early days, and now we're seeing more sophisticated videos coming out of AI apps and websites that are available to us. So a lot is transforming. We just saw Alistair talking about, the moving smell, the sensory of smell into the metaverse and AI platforms. So a lot of things are actually transforming in the world. And so the way we do things actually have to be different. There has to be change in traditional forms of industries, especially legal. And so the next thing we're going to be looking at is challenges and risks that are associated with Web3 and AI. We've heard a few earlier today. And Dr. Jacques, I believe, talked a bit about the risks of AI and Web3. We're seeing some aspects of fraud, money laundering, which a lot of regulatory organizations are quite concerned about. There are deep fakes, and there's the worry that the deep fakes will keep getting better. The privacy issues, we've talked about ownership issues as well, and the disputes and legal battles. I'm sure many of us have heard of the FTX court case and Hermes. There's so many others, but I just wanted to give us a few examples. And so what we're seeing is going into this future of AI and Web3 and all of the wonderful things that are going on, we still find that laws and regulations still maintain that protective hold over industries and citizenry. So going into the world, we need to understand that there's still laws and there's still regulations that need to be adhered to while we're in this world of innovation. But we all know that regulation is a bit slower than innovation. Innovation is moving at top speed, and then regulation is coming at this very slow pace to try and catch up. So we need to look at the Web3 and AI legal landscape. So many of us that have projects in Web3 and AI, what are the legal considerations that we need to consider for our products and our services that we're offering on these platforms? Firstly is jurisdiction. We know that the world is now a global village. Many people who were launching our products previously that were doing it region-based, maybe I launched my products first in the US, and then I'm going into the EU and I'm going to China. Nowadays, you find that projects are launched globally and accessible globally to users all over the world. So you need to first consider the jurisdiction of where your products or your services are going to actually reach. And then the next, we've talked about this a few times earlier today about asset ownership and control. So who owns the assets for your product or your service, and who is able to actually control those assets? The third one is intellectual property. So you need to be looking at copyrights, trademarks, patents where necessary. What are the considerations for IP on the assets that you're dealing with, or products or services? We've talked again about privacy. Data privacy is very, very important going into the future, and where you're dealing with personal data of any users all over the world, you need to put in privacy techniques and tools and processes to be able to manage that data. And then if you're even dealing with sensitive data, personal data, that's also on another level that you need to have additional considerations of when you're dealing with such amounts of data. Also, there's cybersecurity. So how are you securing the data that you have? So it's not just about using data, receiving data, changing data, or owning data, but you have to be able to secure that data, because we know that there are a lot of bad actors as we understand that technology is moving really forward in helping a lot of people all over the world. Then we have the other side where bad actors are actually trying to gain the system and take advantage of people all over the world. So cybersecurity measures need to be in place for your organization. We also need to consider governance, risk, and compliance. And of course, there's civil and criminal liability for many of the products and services that we're looking at. So I put together these three questions. You need to ask yourself for your project: are you the creative collaborator, or is there any possibility of you being an infringer? And then the second would be, how are you balancing innovation and integrity? Because ideally, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And then the third would be the ownership odyssey of who steers the ship in the decentralized seas. We know that many of these systems now are not having central bodies. And so we find that even though there are no central authorities on some aspects of projects, we need to now begin to have some sort of self-regulation within our system. So next, we're looking at navigating Web3 and some of the issues arising. I touched on this earlier. And what we're trying to bring out from this slide is for us to consider that due process needs to begin from day zero. Many of the projects on this slide actually did, if you had asked them at the beginning, I'm sure they wouldn't have thought that there will be an example of issues arising on a slide like this. So we have, for instance, rug pulls. These are projects that raise funds and thereafter abandon the projects. And that's possibly because there was no due process from day zero. We also have pump and dump schemes. We have Terra Luna, which was very popular. I'm sure many of us have heard about that. There's Moonbeam as well. I gave an example of a hack, the DAO, which is a very, very old one, popular one in 2016. Then we also have scams and phishing attacks like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, BAYC, phishing attack in 2022. There's also fraud with FTX and Alameda Research, which I am sure the team members did not set out to be fraudulent, but because they omitted due process within their projects and within their teams, they ended up in this kind of situation. So we're trying to avoid that kind of situation. So we go next into copyright. So copyright also has a lot of issues. There's been a lot of crosshairs and disputes and all what's not in court, varying interpretations of copyright laws. And I give two sample cases. So we have Authors Guild versus Google, and then Warhol and Goldsmith. So on the left, we have Authors Guild and Google, which Google started this project of scanning digital books and then putting them online for users to be able to access. The Authors Guild took Google to court, stating that Google was infringing on their copyrights because Google was making pages of their books available online. And then you have on the other side, on the right side, we have Warhol, who is an artist who recreated the picture that was shot by Goldsmith of Prince, or the artist formerly known as Prince. Warhol's artwork is the one with the red background, and Goldsmith's image is the one on the left side. So what we find is that the court actually decided to do a fair test, four-factor test, which is a fair use test. And the test is 4 questions. What's the purpose of the use, the nature of the work, the amount of the work that has been used, and then the effect on potential markets. On the case on the left, the court held, it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the court held that Google was not infringing on the Authors Guild copyright, because what they made available was just a fraction of the book. And so anyone who wanted to know the entirety of the book still needed to go out and buy the book. And so that wasn't, to the courts, huge enough to cause copyright infringement. And on the right, we find that what the court held in Supreme Court was that the work did not completely transform the picture so as not to affect its potential market use. And so if we look at the image itself, it just looks like the image with the purple face and a red background. And so the courts held in that case that Warhol was indeed infringing on Goldsmith's copyright by not transforming the work enough. And so we look at more recent cases of Zaria of the Dawn, which is the cover of the book was by Chris, and he created the cover using Midjourney. I'm sure many of us are very familiar with Midjourney. And at first, the Copyrights Commission actually awarded the copyright to the author, but eventually that copyright was revoked because the commission held that works autonomously produced by artificial agents and robots might not be eligible for copyright protection because there's no originality and there's no natural person. So that right actually accrues to a natural person. And then on the right, we have Getty Images, which filed this lawsuit accusing Stability AI of infringing on more than 12 million photographs of theirs because parts of the images that were being generated by Stability AI even still had the watermark of the Getty Images on them. And so this is currently still in court. So we find that there are a number of disputes that are still in court that we're watching, but copyrights and ownership is beginning to change. But what we've seen so far is that there must be that natural person involved in order for originality to be awarded for copyrights. So now what we're looking at is, in order to be able to start due process from day 0, for your projects, products, and services that you're creating in the Metaverse, in Web3, and in AI, you need to have a legal stack, and you need to have someone who is able to create this legal stack for you. This is a basic legal stack that I've done here. We typically have more comprehensive frameworks and roadmaps designed for clients, but this is just so you have an idea of what we're looking at. So the first is the categorization of assets. So you need to determine the types of assets you have, the layers, the wrappings of each type of asset. What kind of assets are you dealing with? You may need to prune the assets when necessary and get rid of some parts that you really do not need for that product or service or project. Then again, I've mentioned jurisdictions. You need to determine the requirements of each jurisdiction that you're playing in. It could be cross-functional, it could be global, you could start local. There are different ways of going about it. And then you need to also consider the regulatory framework. What are you looking at? Are you guided by the EU AI Act? GDPR definitely goes for a lot of projects. CCPA if you're in the US, the DMCA, PIPL if you're in China. So there are many laws that need to guide you in this process. Though traditional, and even some traditional regulations, though traditional, you still need to be guided by the regulatory frameworks. And then, of course, best practices and standards within the industry that you find yourself. I mentioned a few here, but for your industry, there could be different types. There's the NIST framework, the FADF rules, OECD, and IEEE, just to name a few. But whatever practices, best practices are available for your industry, that needs to be part of your framework as well. And then you begin to build this into the design. So you work with whoever the product development team, the DevOps, and any other person on the project to include these above stack in your design of your product. So I gave examples here: data privacy by design, security by design, AI governance by design as well, depending on the kind of project. So we're going to quickly look at reimagining the framework. So this is a traditional new framework that we're beginning to craft out. So the first thing you need to look at is who holds the copyright for AI generated content. Copyright ownership is hugely important for whatever project it is that you're on. Secondly is authorship and attribution. So you need to identify the role of humans in your project, in that creative process. What percentage of your creative process is actually, can actually be accrued to a human person? So that human in the loop, which is very prominent in the EU AI Act, is very important for you in your project. You also need to look at fair use. If you're using somebody else's work or you're building on somebody else's work, you need to look at fair use. Is it transformative enough? Will it qualify based on the 4 tests? Question test that we talked about earlier. And then licensing and permissions as well. You need to secure appropriate licenses and permissions for whatever use of copyright. So this works where you have a team of artists that are coming together. You need to have signed releases from each of those artists and the like. Then there's infringement and liability. Look at what infringement could cause for your project. So you need to do a risk assessment, and you need to have risk mitigation strategies in place. You also need to consider international jurisdictions, borders, groups, and things like that. Your copyright laws could vary across jurisdictions. You may need to register in a couple of jurisdictions or go straight to like a WIPO, for instance. And where you have uncertainties, because we are in the wild, we call it the wild, wild west, or gray areas, you need to have open dialogues and collaborations between stakeholders, explore different approaches on how to future-proof your business so that where regulation comes out in that particular sphere, you're on the right side of regulation. Also, very important is ethical considerations and responsible development, very top of the list with the metaverse and AI. Whatever you're creating, you need to collaborate and create in a responsible manner. And then, of course, hire a legal consultant. So the legal consultant could be different from your solicitors or people who are rendering your regular legal services to you. It has to be someone who's well in the Web3 space, the metaverse, and artificial intelligence. So that person is able to create your legal stack for you. And of course, you need to monitor evolving technology and legislations. We talked about that earlier today. You need to be ahead of the game. And honestly, keeping up with technology right now is really tough, but you need to have a team or at least someone who is helping you with that. So what exactly is the road ahead? The road ahead is we have to continue building. There's a lot of innovation in the works. There should be a lot of collaboration, but right in the middle, to make sure that we're flowing and we're creating successful projects, we need to make sure that there's due day zero in our innovative and collaborative works as we build going ahead in the future. And I'd just like to end with this, which says that Web3 is not just a technological change, it's a social and cultural revolution. And so we just need to make sure that we're building responsibly and creating successfully within the Web3 and AI space. So with that, I think I'm going to hand it back to Susan. Thank you so much again for having me today. It's been great being on the session.
Oh, well, Buki, I mean, it was absolutely great having you too. So thank you so very much. I think I got out of that, make the law part of your due process, or ensure that due process cog is right in there between the creativity and the rollout, and make sure that it's real, it's relevant, and that you're responsible. And Buki, you made it sound so, in some ways comforting. And yeah, I think many of us are now sort of thinking, yeah, hire a legal consultant. Let's now get friendly with compliance and governance and the law. So thank you, Buki. We loved having you here. Thank you. And now we're going over to somebody else that always brings such wonderful conversations into the room, and that's Jamie Bycroft-Brett. Jamie, thank you for being with us today. Again, another Gen Z in the room, and always coming with something, awesome, forward-thinking, and actually a word that was mentioned a little bit earlier in the panel, simple. You always tend to find a way of simplifying or making it. I don't mean simple as like silly billy simple, but simple so that we can understand and we can get stuck in. So can we get stuck in with you now, Jamie? Over and out.
Yeah, just double checking you can hear me. All coming through okay?
Coming through brilliantly, Jamie. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. Let me double check that I am where I want to be on this.
Looking brilliant, Jamie. How lovely.
Well, I thought new outfit, new day, and all of that kind of stuff. It's one of those things that if we're going to talk about avatar creation in the metaverse, then I feel that coming to you as an avatar with all of the perks attached to it is definitely a good way to be able to go about it. So, hi everyone. See, got hand movement and everything. I'm really glad to be with you today. We're going to be discussing avatar creation and populating your metaverse community. I am Jamie Bycroft-Brett, as Susan Lovely introduced me. I work on essentially doing digital innovation. So how can I support organizations and business leaders to adapt new and digital innovative technologies, and how do they implement them within their organization? Alongside that, I have an organization called MetaHub. We design virtual reality conferences and events, and we design the virtual spaces. Part of what we're going to be discussing today is the launch of one of those spaces and how that fits in to the conversations that we're having around avatars. And also I run a community called Distributed Republic. It's a free to join community that's all aimed at supporting people to learn more about Web3, the metaverse, and AI. And we're going to be tying all of those things very nicely together. So when we're looking at avatars, I want to start off with some concepts, and they're probably concepts that you've heard a lot about, but I want to make sure I've described them, as Susan said very beautifully, in that way that simplifies and makes sense of something that is quite often very complex. So within this situation, I want you to think about augmented reality and our phygital experiences. So I'm going to use the case study from Maybelline recently. They've launched a Teams filter that essentially allows people to be able to put on makeup using a Teams filter. So it's an augmented overlay over your digital world. And I think it's a really good example of that phygital experience, that blending between our virtual and our physical worlds. So phygital essentially it refers to the erosion between our virtual and physical worlds to the point that they're almost indistinguishable from each other. Or use the avatar example that I've got here as well. This is a phygital product. It is measuring my physical movements in order to be able to control a digital avatar. And it is that blend of both realities. And you've heard a lot about the metaverse and spatial web, and I don't want to, teach you how to be able to suck eggs, but I think it's a really good way to be able to conceptualize these concepts. Is the metaverse, spatial web, cyberspace, they all relate to a very similar concept. There is slight variations of, but essentially, we've got the internet. We know what that is. That is web pages all linked together. We then have the spatial computing element, which is this whole idea of 3D experiences integrating with real world objects, powered often by AR, VR, but doesn't have to be necessarily. You can still have spatial spaces within a 2D environment as well, a 2D screen. And then we have the idea of combining those two things together in order to create a spatial web. So this is in creating an immersive experience. In the past, you might have clicked on a website and you've just gone to, you know, get a couple of things in your Amazon basket. Well, the whole idea and concept of the spatial web and metaverse is that you no longer just have to go to that store and click on all these 2D items and read basically an index page, but you might want to have an experience that allows you to experience some aspect of that. A really good case study of this is IKEA. IKEA have a digital AR library of their products, and what you can do is you can take an IKEA 3D scan of a sofa or something like that, and you can drop it into your household so you can see what it will look like. You can see the measurements, you could see if it would fit. And this is essentially what the spatial web starts to do, is to connect all of these elements together and create an immersive experience from them. So where do avatars fit into our spatial world? Well, essentially, our avatars are these digital representations of ourselves in virtual spaces. Now, this allows us some things that we can't do within reality. I've got quite a simple avatar here, but there's no reason that I couldn't change my hair so it's on fire. There's no reason that I can't make it so my avatar could do moves, things that I couldn't necessarily do, or represent me in a completely different way, depending on how I feel. I could be represented in a digital space with how I want to be represented rather than necessarily who I am, or how I physically show up within the world. So this starts to create a situation where we have our communities in the metaverse are shaped by these cultural icons. Essentially, avatars are shaping the way that we interact within our digital communities. So what do we need to think about from an avatar perspective that the chances are you don't hear enough people talking about, and there's very little thought given to it? And I want to look at this through the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I've said a little bit about this already, but the idea of being able to explore in digital spaces, looking and feeling how you would like to be represented within that world. So this allows you to explore different identities. This allows you to be able to look at, you know, how you want to be seen by others. Lots of people use it as a way of experimentation. It could be a way of you being able to find out what makes you feel comfortable without necessarily having to go into the physical world with it. I know lots of people have explored their sexuality through, first of all, participating online through gender exploration and presenting as a different kind of avatar than potentially their assigned sex or gender. And this allows us to be able to explore worlds in a very interesting way, but there is nuances to that, and I'll come on to that in a second. The other thing that we find with a lot of avatar creation is there is an amazing opportunity for diversity and inclusion within these spaces, but often they fall short. For example, if we're looking at disability, the chances of being able to have avatars that represent, you know, people who might be in wheelchairs, people who might have, be missing a limb. My brother absolutely hates that he can't change his avatar to have different colored eyes because he's got a blue and a green eye. So he doesn't feel very represented when it comes to his avatar because it doesn't quite match up with him. And this is kind of starting to get to a point where these avatars are just perpetuating societal norms and values because they represent a large population of people, but always exclude from a marginalized point of view. And therefore, people often feel that they're not represented within these digital spaces. It's easier for me to get an avatar and turn into Spider-Man than it is for me to get an avatar with a wheelchair. So, you know, people don't always feel represented within those worlds. And this obviously leads to a lot of additional considerations that we might not have considered up until this point. I'm going to give the example of Photoshop. So if you can think about when Photoshop first came into existence and we started seeing a lot more photo editing done from that perspective. Now, the introduction of Photoshop has led in many ways to a generation of eating disorders and challenges with self-perception, because we started to manipulate the real world, and then people started to process what that world actually meant. And that meant that they started to not necessarily see themselves within that world, or see that the world had been warped around them, and it changed the shape of their reality. That phygital experience of digitally editing photographs changed people's digital perceptions on the world. Now, once again, although I said earlier about lots of people being able to participate in digital spaces, maybe to explore different identities, what challenges does that also bring for people psychologically when they can show up in a digital space how they would like to, but potentially in the physical world that doesn't match up? Does that create some form of dissociation? Does that make it hard for people to see themselves in IRL as they do in URL? And we still really don't know the impact of that. But when we start to look at immersive technologies, what we do know is people engage with them for far longer than 2D content. They're 36% more. People spend 36% more time on VR content, and it's engaged with for 26% time, 26% longer, which I think is a great example of how this new level of immersion captures us in a different way. And as it does so, it's also going to magnify the challenges that we already see between this fracture between our physical and our digital world. So I've given you those considerations, but one of the big considerations that I'd like you to think about, and something that I definitely don't hear anyone talking about, but I think about every blooming night, is the whole concept of synthesians. So our digital worlds and our virtual spaces won't just be populated by humans with digital avatars. Our digital worlds will be populated by digital situations, digital citizens that are underpinned by AI in some way. So we're not necessarily, and we're not always going to be able to tell if there is a human behind the avatar that we're talking to. For example, in this conversation right here, you don't know if I'm actually a human who's sitting behind this avatar right now. This could be a very complicated AI. This could be a very intuitive AI with a lot of big ideas. But you don't know that because you can't see me physically doing this. So therefore, our digital worlds are going to be populated very similarly to this. This is going to really redefine what those connections in virtual spaces means and what our virtual communities are like, because our virtual communities might also be populated by avatars that are underpinned by AI. And this is going to lead to these AI-driven human AI interactions within virtual spaces in the metaverse. And we have to think about some of the ethical, social, and personal implications of these AI human dynamics. I'm going to give you a really good example of why this is important. Last year, we saw for the first time that AI content creation had dropped below AI companionship. Let me give some context to that. That means that people were using AI for chatbots and interactive text interfaces, companionship apps, character interactions. That generation from an AI perspective and use of AI was greater than the use of content generation. And I always thought that this would happen, but I am surprised at how quickly that's happened. In many ways, technology fills the gap in human interaction that we are missing. I could give the example of laptop interactions for 16 to 19-year-olds is over 7 hours a day, excluding education. That means young people today spend 7 hours on screens, and that's not including the time that they're in school when it might be looking at a whiteboard or watching a video or whatever it might be. Now, that would be inconceivable that a few years, well, many years ago, that this whole idea that technology is going to facilitate the shortcoming and fall in human interaction. And essentially, technology is better than humans do. Machine better than humans do. But they're also at the moment humaning better than humans do. And that is a interesting challenge that we are going to have to experience when it comes to creating our virtual worlds. And as we go into this more immersive technology, the virtual spaces we participate in. This really kind of leads to a phygital reality where our avatars and our interactions become warped by what we consider to be real. A really good example of this is last week in Hong Kong, an organization was scammed out of £20 million by AI fraudsters that were using deepfake technology on a live Zoom call to convince a senior official to be able to give money into 5 accounts. So basically distribute the company's wealth into 5 accounts, because the person who thought they were interacting with those people on a Zoom call. I've been at some tech events where I have seen people developing deep fakes for Zoom calls where you can literally use it just as a filter. So if you wanted to show up as a different person, it's very easy to be able to do so. You put the filter on, you could drop it from your virtual camera, and you turn back into yourself. So it's going to become harder and harder to distinguish between our virtual and our real. And this leads me to our favorite person, Morpheus, who would go, you know, your mind makes it real. That's the thing when it comes to our digital spaces. Your interaction in digital worlds is made real because you perceive it to be so. And that could have some profound impacts on us.
Hey, Jamie. Oh, we're
Yeah.
last one. See, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm on the last slide. Yeah. So I wanted to just introduce you to the Metropolitan University, which is my metaverse world that I've designed as part of the community that I have called Distributed Republic. This is a virtual metaverse space that is designed to teach people about Web3, the metaverse, and AI. It contains both instructor-led and self-directed content, meaning that it has avatars that can teach you about certain subjects. It has a panel of real-life people who are constantly on a loop, delivering this panel over and over and over to give you that access to expertise under mine. And also gamification as well. We've got an agent chase game that literally, if the agent catches you, he's going to change your avatar into an agent, teaching people about some of the concepts around what does it mean to have your avatar hijacked or your digital identity being hijacked. So what I'll do is I'll put the links in the chat, but if you'd like to be able to go and explore that world, it's not ready for launch yet, but you can definitely go and test it out. We're probably about 85% of the way there, but you can click on it, go and explore that virtual space, and yeah, see what you think of it. We're trying to look for sponsorship for it at the moment. You'll see there's lots of advertising space on there. So if it's something you want to have a bigger conversation with, then I'd love to be able to talk to you a little bit more about it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jamie.
That is amazing, Jamie. Thank you. Thank you so much. And we shall see you on the other side, as they say. But what I do want to do, John Scott, I know you're going to join me in the room as Jamie leaves, is just honour you, Jamie, because, you know, we too met at that very first webinar on January the 25th, 2021. And you gave us the hashtag term, or I use it as a hashtag, digital economic justice. And again, you know, everything you said today captures around those 3 words. So thank you, Jamie. Over and out. And John Scott, come and join me in the room. We're going to do a majorly swift roundup. Are you there, John Scott?
Yes, I should be. Yeah.
Yeah, you're there. I can see you now. John Scott, thank you for being around, capturing a lot of what was happening today. I mean, I know you too are very much on that bridge from Web 2 to Web 3, and you can talk to us a little bit about that in a second. And I was going to say, we're to be very quick on our captures, and then tomorrow, when we open again, I wondered if you'd flesh out a bit more for us then, John Scott. But over to you for now. You know, tell us about your Web3 journey very quickly, and then 2 captures of today.
Well, I think, thanks, Susan. I appreciate it. And thanks to Jamie and everyone today, because this was, you know, I always expect, I have high expectations from my friend Sharad and what he puts together with the community, and they're always surpassed. And today was certainly probably, if not the one of the best examples of that surpassing. I'll forego my own thoughts relating to my work, but I will focus on a few things. I think, redefining the future, the opportunities and risks, the need, which was highlighted today, to pay attention day by day, minute by minute, because there is constantly new innovation. It was wonderfully represented today by all of the participants and presenters and panels. I think, one of the takeaways from this for me, I'll give you the two, right? One phrase I think of is infinite possibilities. If you told me what Alistair was talking about, because Sharad has been freaking about this for a while, I wouldn't have believed it until hearing about it and seeing it, which was wonderful. I think the other conversation that we are continuing today, and will continue certainly tomorrow and in the future, is the AI and society, the future risks and opportunities. I think, we're looking at great opportunity. What is it, Spider-Man? With great power comes great responsibility. I think everyone touched on the upside and the possibility, and also looked at what can go wrong and how this can be compromised. I think it begs a larger conversation. We'll continue this wonderful dialogue with all of you tomorrow. I know we went over it just a bit, and I'll kick it back to you, Susan. Looking very much forward to tomorrow. Thanks, Jamie. Looking forward to everyone joining us tomorrow and to the exciting list of participants and panels that we have set for you all tomorrow. So thank you everyone for your participation and attendance today.
Well, look, John Scott, let's leave it there. You've thanked us all. Let's go with that. Bid you all good night, good afternoon, farewell. Thank you very, very much until tomorrow, 5 p.m. UAE. See you then. Good night.